Winnipeg, Manitoba, otherwise known as Manitoba. Welcome, everyone. We will now get underway, and I see the delegates are here. We will start with the presentation from the 2SLGBTQIA Plus Council. I believe the two of you are making... Three of you. Okay. On my agenda, I do have Dwayne Aucoin, Bertie Lehman, and you'll introduce your team. So with that, I turn it over to Dwayne.
Thank you. Masih isla to get you one yaketsu yosatini. Klein gonna chish hat yanadi. Klein gonna chish yaketsu yosatini. Gastant kak schnutku hatu asauk. Klinga chenach. Goch nachat siti an yedi ayachat. Klekayadi kadeshitan dachanta ayachat. Dechlison kwan ayachat. Klein chish Treaty 1. Klein chish Anishinaabe. Klein chish Cree. Klein chish Dakota. Klein chish Red River Métis. My name is Dwayne Gaston Aucoin. I'm from the inland Tlingit Nation in the Yukon, southern Yukon. My moiety is Wolf. My clan is Yanyedi. I'm a white man child. My mother fell in love with a Frenchman. He is Acadian. They immigrated from France in 1640 and settled in what is now called Nova Scotia. And I always hold my hands up to the Mi'kmaq for helping my people, my dad's people, survive in their new home here. I'm also a Deshiton grandchild, split-tail beaver, and my home is Teslin, Yukon. And I thank the people of Treaty 1, I thank the people of Anishinaabe, the people of Cree, the people of Dakota, and the Red River Métis. I hold my hands up for allowing us to meet on your beautiful territory here today. And I'm going to let our committee members who are here, council members who are here with us here today to introduce themselves. Okay.
Gwehai, Deluisi, Bertie, Deluisin, El Mazdagwek. My name is Bertie Lehman. I'm a Two-Spirit Land Protector of the Halapu Mi'kmaq First Nation, and I'm honored to serve as co-chair with Dwayne on the council.
Hot Squile Tanoya, Skohamish Aslahan Okomeo, Oreen Askew Queensla, Tamalia Queen Koshaming. Good morning, everyone. My name is Oreen Askew, and I'm Afro-Indigenous from the Squamish Nation, and I'm two-spirited, and I'm the BC rep on this amazing council. It's nice to see everyone this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Gasanahoe Sky Deer, coming from Ganawage and Yagahaga territory. I'm the Quebec rep on the 2S Council. Very honored to be here and serving in this role with the council members here. Nyawa, thank you.
I also wanted to thank Marcel Belfour, who's the Manitoba representative on our council, and also to thank our amazing staff that work with us at the AFN and also the regional staff. That they've just been amazing. And Gwen, who's our elder for our council, you're just amazing. Kaichka. And I also want to recognize I have two family members here today. I've got my sister Giselle back there from Saskatchewan. I also wanted to honor Mama Alanis. It's just an amazing and such an honor to have her in my life and have her here doing her amazing work. So please give both of them a round of applause. Je t'aime, Mama.
I love you, Mom.
It actually originated here in Winnipeg, Elder Myra Lemary in 1990. So this is the 35th anniversary of that modern term to describe us. So it's fitting that we're back here 35 years later to honor Elder Myra Lemary. In 2018, the AFN resolution also directed AFN to work with two SIMs. And so I want to honor the two SIMs who are here today, sitting beside my sister, and all of them who do amazing work. And so thank you for being here with us as well. In 2021, the National Chief Roseanne Archibald was spearheaded establishing this new 2S LGBTQIA+ Council for the Assembly of First Nations. And so I always thank Roseanne, the National Chief Roseanne Archibald, for that amazing work that she did, helping get this, this council established. And that was in 2021. 2023, our council had our first meeting here in Winnipeg, again. And we developed our terms of reference. And we had our, one thing with the terms of reference, we operate by consensus. The shirt I wear is decolonize. We don't follow these Robert's Rules of Order. Who's that Robert anyways? We follow our way, and our way is consensus. It's not 5 votes against 4 or this region against that region. We're all one people. And so we're the only council in AFN that operates, to my knowledge, that operates this way, by consensus. It's the way my First Nation operates back home as well, Tasmanclika Council. We come together. If we have differences, we work it out. And then we move forward as one. Maybe that's something, a model that we could look at for the larger Assembly of First Nations as well. I think that would help eliminate and alleviate a lot of animosity that happens. In Winnipeg, we also elected the Saskatchewan representative, Tyler George, as our first chair. And I wanted to thank Saskatchewan for sharing Tyler with us, and to thank Tyler. He couldn't be here today, he had to go, but we're going to honor him at the December Special Chiefs Assembly in Ottawa. But I still wanted to thank him in front of everyone here today for the work, amazing work that they did for us, and they still continue to do. Again here in Winnipeg, last year, the Two-Spirit flag was presented that was designed by Anishinaabe artist Patrick Hunter. It's an amazing, a beautiful design, and it was unveiled at the Museum of Human Rights. So Winnipeg, you sure got a lot going on here. It's the center of a lot, and so it's an honor to be here, to be with all of you. As a new council, we're still getting our feet wet. We're still establishing things as a new council. One of the things in the charter talks about how our members can fully participate in executive committee meetings. So we're still ironing out some things and still in the process of getting fully established, but we're on the way, and so we're getting there. We all participated in an organizational review that took place, and we really look forward with the other councils on how to work better within AFN. How can the councils better support the executive, better support the other committees, and better support this assembly? So we're in the process of reviewing that to make things better. And what I've heard is that that organizational review, the report will be presented at the December Special Chiefs Assembly in Ottawa. So we really look forward to getting that report. We, all the Two-Spirit Council, along with the other councils, we had time scheduled with the National Chief a couple of months ago, but because of time constraints, we just weren't able to meet with her. But we're in the process of rescheduling that meeting with all the councils with the National Chief, so hopefully that happens soon, so we can do a further report and update in Ottawa. We really look forward to Resolution 45 being passed here today. That supports the Resolution 13 panel final report, and it's another area, when fully implemented, to help bring gender equality, make Assembly of First and gender diverse, make AFN a safe place for all of us. And I think that is another big piece that will help Assembly of First Nations, is implementing all the recommendations within the Report 13. There's also Resolution 6 that's here today, improving access to gender-affirming products, gear and supplies, and that's seconded by our New Brunswick representative, Chief Alan Pochis, who also they were here the first day but had to go back. They were too happy to have seen Premier Wab Canoe, so had to go home and celebrate, like we all were. Last year, I spoke with the National Chief at a press conference on the 5th anniversary of the 231 calls to justice for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit, where we, along with the Women's Council, where we reminded Canada that those calls to justice just can't sit on the shelf, that we need those calls to justice to be implemented to protect our women, protect our girls, protect our Two-Spirit people. Canada needs to put its money where its mouth is and get to action, less talking and more doing. Our council also signed a joint letter with the Women's Council. Before the election, Prime Minister Carney had actually waged the Women and Gender Equality Ministry amalgamated it with another ministry, so there was no separate ministry. So the two councils, the 2S Plus Council and the Women's Council, we sent a joint letter to Prime Minister Carney asking him to reestablish WAGE and to reestablish it as a full ministry with a full minister. And we're really happy when he won the election that he did that he reestablished that important ministry. Our council also co-signed a letter from the Civil Liberties Society calling for the public consultation regarding the use of the notwithstanding clause. Very disturbing how governments can just freely use this clause to override charter rights. We saw it in Saskatchewan when they overrode the charter rights of Two-Spirit and trans youth. And we see other provinces using it as well, and we have federal leaders such as Poilievre threatening to use the notwithstanding clause to override charter rights. There has to be a discussion around this, because who's next? Who's next on the list? I also spoke at a G7 Pride event, at Pride 7, where I again called on Canada. It was, everybody had their pom-poms for Canada, how great Canada is. And I was wanting this to be honest. Canada, yes, has come a long ways. Canada, yes, is better than a lot of places. But also Canada, yes, still has a long way to go. And to be honest about that and to work together. As we decolonize, as we get back to our ways, our Two-Spirit, where the Creator had put us here to help our people and to be that bridge to help build and strengthen unity. As we decolonize from foreign beliefs, foreign ways of thinking, foreign ways of doing things, and getting back to our way of doing things, the stronger that we'll be able to help all of our people as Two-Spirit people to hold all of you up so that we can move forward as one family, no matter what nation we're from, where we're from, who we choose to love, how we choose to live. We'll walk together in unity for the better of all our generations coming after us as well. So, I'm going to give our co-chair Bertie. I'm sure I missed a lot of things, and so Bertie, we can fill in the gaps. But Atling Gunachish, Haichka, Chi Miigwech, Masi Cho, thank you very much. And so Bertie.
Thank you, Dwayne. Yeah, you covered a lot of it. There's been a lot of great work of the council, and we're really proud of what we've been able to do. And people were not joking about the height of the podium. So as a council, we've only been established since 2021, but had our first meeting here in Winnipeg in 2023. And we've been established to ensure that the realities and lived experiences of 2S LGBTQIA+ community members are respected and upheld. First Nations 2S Plus priorities require their own space, place, and voice within the Assembly of Nations, and we're glad to see that recognized with with our flag being raised at the first time in the December Assembly, as well as an ongoing recognition and a standing practice now that this will always be a part of our Assembly for years into the future. And it's so fitting that this is here in Winnipeg again. There's been so many wonderful things that we highlighted around the history of this place and our experience as Two-Spirit people. So again, a huge thank you, Wilalio, for that work. There's been so much work that we've been doing. Our council holds portfolios in all areas across AFN, and we also know that a number of regions have started establishing regional councils. So we really want to continue to support that work and help every region be able to have their own local regional representation so we can have that more direct, connected voice all across Turtle Island. Last fall, our former co-chair Tyler George attended the Trilateral Working Group on Violence Against Indigenous Women and Girls in Mexico City, and this was done to address the alarming rates of violence against Indigenous women and girls as a pressing issue. As a result of this meeting, members from Canada, Mexico, and the United States called on their governments to develop robust policies that confront extractive industries and transnational corporations, because we know these activities undermine our land sovereignty, endanger women, girls, and gender-diverse peoples to a higher extent. Dwayne mentioned attending G7, as we've been doing a lot of that international work and reminding the world of our rich history here as Two-Spirit and First Nation folks. We also took place in a dialogue session on the implementation of the 2S Plus Action Plan measures at this year's AFN National Policy Forum and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Again, we thank Two Spirits in Motion for helping with lead on these important projects, and we hope to build more meaningful partnerships and collaborations in the future. We're so grateful that you're here. We've been meeting with the Department of Women and Gender Equality to further work that is needed for our communities and to seek the necessary funding for the Council to operate. Looking forward, we continue to oppose legislation and policies that endanger and infringe on our rights. We've actively engaged and sent letters to regions and provinces that would seek to endanger our trans and gender diverse relatives, trying to roll back our rights through things like the notwithstanding clause. We won't stand for it. We will stand up and fight back. We also continue to advance our strategic plan. It sets forth our mandate to ensure that 2S LGBTQIA+ people are provided opportunities to lead healthy and prosperous lives. We look forward to continuing opportunities for 2S Plus council members in areas such as health, recreation, research, and policy development, and everything that is of importance to our communities. However, we are deeply concerned about the impacts of planned funding cuts that's going to happen and the impacts that's going to have on 2S Plus peoples. We remain concerned about the Building Canada Act that will have negative impact on our peoples, our lands, and our ways of life. The decisions being made here this week not only have a deep impact on all First Nations people, but especially Two-Spirit and LGBTQIA+ people. We often face higher rates of discrimination, violence, and inequality, and with the rising hate and transphobia that we're seeing around the world, our work is especially urgent, and we appreciate all of you for being part of it. We'd like to thank you, Chief, Elders, Youth, Technicians, staff, participants for joining us today with open hearts as we discuss critical issues that deeply impact our communities, particularly our Two-Spirit and gender-diverse youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Bertie. And I wanted to quickly honor our first woman chief from Tezcatlica Council, my chief, Chief Liz Beausoleil. Give her a hand, please. Thank you, everyone. And cheer loud for the Women's Council and the Youth Council, too. Thank you.
Miigwech. And we'll move right along to the other two updates. I'm going to turn it over to the National Youth Council. We have two speakers, but we also, it looks like we have the whole council up here to support the presentation. So we have Isaiah Bernard and Kiera, and I have to apologize, how you pronounce, is it Lebeau? Kiera Lebeau. So I'll turn it over to the Youth Council.
Thank you for us having here. Before I begin, I just want to offer my condolence to Hollow Water First Nations for that. For those who weren't aware, there was a senseless act of violence that happened a couple nights ago, and I want to offer my strength and prayers, and our thoughts are with you. And I want to thank all the chiefs and leaders here who made it through the last 3 days of tough dialogue. I really respect that because this is how work gets done. I also want to thank the staff who are here, who worked tirelessly behind the scenes and made sure everything got here. Without them, this would not have been a thing. So if you guys can give a round of applause to our staff. And also, I want to thank our regional chiefs, and most importantly, our co-chairs. One of them being Veronica Picard, who was our co-chair for last year, and it's no longer. She wants to ride off into the sunset, which I envy that. So as I mentioned before, I'm Isaiah Bernard. I'm the co-chair of the National Youth Council. Somehow they kept me for another year. That's great. Our youth council is how we do things. We have proxies. We have youth in all these we have portfolios. We go across the country, and our objective is to make sure that our voice is heard, the next generation is heard, because we offer a fresh new experience. And the last year we went to we got to go to the One Young World, and there we got to meet youth from all across the world, like Venezuela, Guatemala. There was a lot of good youth who we met there. It was really awesome. And then that's pretty much my part, actually. I want to before I hand out to my co-chair, I want to introduce our members who are on stage here. To my left, we have Braylon Lasaga from Labrador, Newfoundland. Carter Carpenter from Ontario. Cheyenne Denny from Pictou-Land, Nova Scotia. Tijana Joe from Saskatchewan. And I'm going to mispronounce this on purpose. Ethan Lavalley from Yukon, who left us and came back to us because he realized he loved us. And then I want to also formally introduce my new co-chair, Kiara LeBeau from PEI. She's the 5th Mi'kmaq to be the co-chair, and also she's the first person from PEI to be the co-chair of the National Youth Council. So please give her a warm introduction.
Thank you. As Isaiah said, my name is Kiara LeBeau. I'm from Lennox Island First Nation in Prince Edward Island, in our beautiful home that we're missing this week, but also I'm very thankful for being welcomed here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'll jump into the AFN forums. In October 2024, the Youth Council members attended the AFN's 3rd National Climate Gathering, which brought together environmental experts, First Nation leaders, academics, and non-government organizations to share knowledge and discuss climate change, solutions, and impacts on First Nations. The Youth Council members co-planned and attended the pre-conference Youth Day, where First Nations youth share their experience, perspectives, and proposed solutions to climate change. The National Youth Council members presented the youth gathering findings and perspectives to National Climate Gatherings delegates in a panel. Earlier this year, the National Youth Council portfolio holders also attended the National Housing and Infrastructure Conference and the AFN United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. That is a portfolio that I also hold. It was a great forum. The panelists were amazing. And the AFN Education Forum, as well as the AFN Natural Resource Forum. These opportunities provided space for the National Youth Council to learn, network, and share their important perspectives on matters impacting First Nations youth. In 2025 to 2026, the National Youth Council looks forward to updating and advancing a new National Youth Council communication strategy to promote First Nations youth priority areas and increase overall youth engagement. In closing, we want to take this moment to recognize not only the National Youth Council members, but all First Nations youth who are making a difference in their communities nationally and internationally. We urge communities and regional organizations to continue to listen to young people and integrate youth perspectives into their work. We can all work together to ensure the youth have a future that is worth inheriting and that they see themselves reflecting and shaping that future. Our youth are the next generation, and their perspectives bring a lot to the table. We extend our best wishes to you all for a successful and productive assembly. Thank you.
Like the other councils before me, we're going to go over 5 minutes. I just wanted to say one quick thing before I go is another strength and prayer to those who are battling cancer. For those who are battling, we offer our strength and prayer. To those who lost members to cancer, it sucks, and we offer our strength and prayer to you guys. That's all. That's it. Wow.
Thank you once again to the National Youth Council. Let's give them another round of applause. Michaëlle. So the next presentation, the next council report is from the Women's Council. So I'd like to call upon Connie Big Eagle as well as Brenda Vanguard. Can I have Connie and Brenda make their way up to the podium? And there they are, along with their colleagues, which is good to see.
Ambawashte. Good morning, everyone. First and foremost, I thank Creator for this beautiful day, another day of life, another day of breath. I also acknowledge that we're on Treaty 1 territory, the land of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Anisinu, the Dakota, Lakota, and the Dene people. I thank the elders and the drum group that opened this meeting this week. And so what night? We're on Friday now. On Wednesday evening, we had an election. I did not put my name in this time. There were 2 candidates, and our successful candidate is Brenda Vanguard. She's our new chair for the AFN Women's Council. So I'm going to let her say a few words before we carry on with the report.
Good morning. Nigan tatamskat na wow. Aywa nanas kumaog mamotao ino kotakis kau emigwe. Good morning. My name is Brenda Vanguard. I'm from the Kihiwan Cree Nations located in the Treaty 6 territory of Alberta. And I'm the women's rep for that area. First and foremost, I would like to sincerely thank Connie Big Eagle for her leadership as our chairperson for the last 3 years. Her contributions have been immense, and we are thankful for her insight that you've shared, Connie. For this, I am grateful to serve as the council as newly elected chairperson for the next 3 years. However, I would like to give back the mic to Connie to finish providing the report on the Women's Council annual report. So she'll mention all the achievements that we did for the last few years. Thank you.
So as part of our council's commitment to advance the 231 calls for justice, we are narrowing our scope of activities to strategically focus on 3 key areas of advocacy. These include implementation of the National Inquiry's MMIWG 2S+ National Action Plan, redress for the forced and coerced sterilization of First Nations women and support for criminalization of forced sterilization, and MMIWG2S+ and addressing problematic government policies and legislation. In terms of international work, we have continued with our international advocacy on MMIWG2S+ by meeting with sisters from Mexico and the United States as part of the 6th convening of the Trilateral Working Group on Violence Against Women and Girls. We addressed that jurisdictional disputes between Canada and the United States undermine justice for families and MMIWG2S+. At the United Nations 69th Commission on the Status of Women, we further stressed how there are implications around border mobility, over-incarceration, and MMIWG2S+ issues that persist today. Here at home, domestically, we also continue to push for the full implementation of the 231 calls for justice. This year, we've focused on human trafficking through the AFN's National Virtual Forum and contributed to federal discussions on ending violence against First Nation women and girls, as well as flagged key considerations around culturally informed data supports and policies that impact First Nations women and girls. At these tables, we also participated in discussions around the Red Dress Alert, where we provided insight around implementation effectiveness. We thank Manitoba for its leadership and ensuring the Red Dress Alert pilot is Indigenous-led, and we also look forward to hearing more from those involved in the project. In closing, the AFN Women's Council has worked closely with the National Caucus of Women Leaders, which was established in 2022 and supported by Women and Gender Equality Canada. A final meeting under the existing project took place in March. We express sincere gratitude and commend the work they have achieved. We call on the Government of Canada to continue supporting the development of a mentorship program for aspiring women pursuing leadership. We will also continue to call for justice for our lost loved ones, better tools to support the healing of our families and loved ones, and real action by all levels of government to end the violence against our women, girls, and gender diverse people. Let's see. Just a personal note. As women do, they sacrifice what they need so that their loved ones can get what they need. And the AFN Women's Council is no different. I've heard people all asking for that surplus in dollars that we found out this week that AFN has. So I'm hoping that our women representative will be invited to a budget meeting so that we can get some of that money as well. And also, this is my last report to you as the AFN Assembly, and I just want to say thank you to this wonderful organization. It's not perfect, but it's ours, and as a young woman, the first time I ever came here, I was amazed by it, and I am still amazed today. I had the privilege of sitting with the Executive Council and always being impressed by their wisdom and how well-spoken they are. And it's been an absolute pleasure to serve in this organization, and it's been a pleasure to serve along with these women, and I thank all the staff for all the help that they've provided to us and to me through the years. Thank you very much.
Miigwech, thank you very much again to outgoing Chair of the National Women's Council, Connie Big Eagle, as well as the new Chair, Brenda Vanguard. Let's give them again a miigwech. So it's now 9:35. Just for official record-keeping business, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We've called the meeting to order, and that'll help determine the quorum count, obviously, for today. So with that, I say miigwech. I'll turn it over to my colleague Cedric to get into the next panel discussion. Miigwech.
Thank you, Adam. So again, I just want to start off by recognizing the panelists that are going to come here. They heard the discussions that were had yesterday, the request to have more time. So they did accept to take a 1-hour panel and make it 30 minutes to create that space for more discussion. So I just want to recognize their openness to that. We will be having a panel on the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples and repatriation of our artifacts, talking about community capacity, industry protocols, partnerships, as well as UNDA and Bill C-5. We are lucky to have with us today Regional Chief Terry Teegee, who will provide opening remarks. We also have Grand Chief Kyra Wilson, Brandy George, and Janice Bombery. I will let Regional Chief Teegee give opening remarks, and then I will present our speakers after that. So I would look for Regional Chief.
Merci, Cedric. Danezat, Sekozat, Skiza. First of all, I want to acknowledge the territory of the Treaty 1, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the Knowledge Keepers, Elders, and Chiefs for joining us today on this very important matter. I want to thank our panelists who are up here and partners for your leadership and commitment to advancing this very important discussion. As the AFN portfolio holder for the United Nations Declaration Act and the implementation of the National Action Plan, I'm honored to open this session on the repatriation of First Nations items and sacred artifacts. First Nations have the inherent and sacred right to care for, protect, and govern their cultural heritage, including sacred objects, ceremonial items, ancestral remains, and knowledge systems. These are not simply artifacts. They are the beginnings of our ancestors, our nation's histories, and our identities. The United Nations Declaration's Article 11 and 12 makes it clear that we have a right to maintain, protect, and have access and privacy to our cultural sites, the right to use and control our ceremonial objects, and the right to the repatriation of our ancestors and restitution for their removal. First Nations have long called on the return through AFN resolutions, and First Nations in Assembly continue to mandate AFN to hold governments and institutions accountable. Through the passing of the Federal United Nations Declaration Act, or UNDA, Canada has committed to ensuring the consistency of federal laws with these minimum human rights standards. The United Nations Declaration Act Action Plan's shared priority number 98 commits the Department of Canadian Heritage to co-develop a distinctions-based approach, including legislative, programming, and service measures to enable repatriation and rematriation of our ancestors and belongings. As part of this approach, we need a national repatriation strategy. Our AFN resolution on the repatriation of First Nations items and sacred artifacts speaks to the First Nations-led structures that need to be in place to ensure this work aligns with the United Nations Declaration. I know we're short on time, and I want to thank you for allowing me to open this session. Merci.
Thank you, Regional Chief. I will now present our speakers. So we do have with us Grand Chief Kyra Wilson, is a proud Anishinaabe and Yahweh leader from Long Plain and Sandy Bay First Nation. As you heard on the first day, in 2022, Kyra was elected Chief of Long Plain First Nation, one of the youngest women to hold that role. She now serves as the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, where she continues to focus on children, families, and the future of First Nations people. We also have with us Brandy George, a member of the Kettle and Stony Point First Nations, who holds a degree in archaeology and anthropology from Wilfrid Laurier University, as well as the University of Toronto. And she's currently pursuing her PhD at Western University. Since 2003, she's been working in providing consulting services on archaeological and cultural projects, and always in partnership with First Nations communities. In 2010, she founded her own consulting group with the goal of centering projects around First Nations perspectives. She's a professionally licensed archaeologist in Ontario, where she's contributed to a number of significant projects. She's also served as a technical advisor for the Chiefs of Ontario Heritage and Burials Working Group. She's undertaken archaeological assessments and supported the repatriation of our ancestors and sacred items. She's worked as a lead researcher and advisor for Ontario's Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, as a cultural awareness program facilitator with the Department of National Defence, and has also assisted with the Office of the Chief Coroner of Ontario of several initiatives. And finally, we have Janice Bombury, who's a member of the Mohawk Nation Turtle Clan from Six Nations of the Grand River. With over 20 years of leadership in cultural and community organizations, Janice is recognized for her commitment to repatriation advocacy, relationship building, and advancing equity and transparency in the museum field. She currently sits as the Executive Director and CEO of the Canadian Museums Association. She was also the Executive Director of the Woodland Cultural Centre for over 2 decades, where she played a pivotal role in repatriation efforts and in Indigenous cultural stewardship. She successfully lobbied with federal and provincial governments for the restoration of the former Mohawk Institute residential schools between 2015 and 2017, and oversaw a capital fundraising project of more than $20 million to support the project. Her professional work remains focused on strengthening Indigenous cultural heritage and advancing repatriation through strategic advocacy, public dialogue, and institutional change. In recognition for her ongoing contributions, Janice received the Sovereign's Medal for Volunteers from the Governor-General of Canada in 2022. We're going to be doing this also a little differently, more of one of those fireside chats. We don't have any sofas, but you can imagine them in your mind. And I will look towards maybe our regional chief first to see, when we're talking about advancing repatriation, what makes this moment important, and maybe talk about the momentum that you've seen as portfolio holder.
Thank you, Cedric. And I suppose I could bring this back to my region of British Columbia. And in my region, we've been long calling for repatriation and rematriation of many of our many of the items and ancestral remains of our people. And certainly part of that is implementation of our inherent rights with respect to our ancestors, our sacred belongings, and culture and heritage. With growing acknowledgement of the principles and standards of the United Nations Declaration, which is law provincially and federally in British Columbia, we have the opportunity to co-develop implementation legislation that reflects our priorities and interests regarding our cultural heritage, ancestors, and artifacts. Under BC's Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which has been in law for the last 6 years, BC AFN, along with our sister organizations, Union of BC Indian Chiefs and First Nations Summit, known as the First Nations Leadership Council, we have been working with the BC government towards aligning provincial heritage legislation with the United Nations Declaration Act in British Columbia. The Heritage Conservation Act Transformation Project has a confirmed mandate from Cabinet to co-develop new legislation that affirms First Nations inherent rights in relation to their cultural and heritage, expands the definition of heritage to include First Nations values, and affirms First Nations as decision makers regarding where ancestors and heritage belongings are held and cared for. The new legislation is targeted for introduction in spring of 2026 next year, and we encourage other regions, provinces to do the same. This has been a work that's been done in British Columbia for far too long. It's well over 12 years. We've been looking to update and the culture and heritage legislation, but it's not without the hard work of many of our First Nations in British Columbia. And certainly appreciate all the support that many of our First Nations in BC have been receiving from the AFN, and certainly part of that, you know, shared stories with Chief Dalton Silver and his fight for a sacred site in his territory called Lightning Rock, and that is what we need, and we need also legislation federally and provincially to align with the United Nations Declaration Act. Thank you, Cedric.
Thank you, Regional Chief. And again, since we cut down on time, not everyone's going to have the chance to answer every question, but I would like to have Janice, as the Executive Director and CEO of the Canadian Museums Association, what kind of a momentum have you been seeing from that side of the field?
Thank you. Yes, so I think for decades we have seen grassroots repatriation happen across this country in communities, and the momentum has definitely been building. When the Canadian Museums Association was called out in TRC Call to Action number 67, it asked us to respond to looking at a national framework and analysis of museums across the country, and we did so. And in 2022, we released the Move to Action report, which outlined 10 standards and recommendations. There's been definitely more outside attention to this because of HBC and the topic for the need for a repatriation framework in this country. And what we are seeing is that there really needs to be a coordinated federal action being done, because First Nations leadership can advocate for a well-funded, Indigenous-led, Indigenous cultural heritage rights framework. And this framework needs to think beyond ancestral remains and ceremonial belongings. It really needs to look at more on the return of everything that's related to Indigenous cultural knowledge as well.
Thank you, Janice. So for our next question, and we are right on time, so thank you for that. We know that in Canada, many museums and institutions have large collections of our ancestral remains, our cultural belongings, our sacred items. I might like to hear about what kind of progress is being made to address this, and maybe what are some of the gaps and barriers that we still need to address. And I might look towards Brandy as her role as an archaeologist.
Okay, so we all know that museums and institutions, universities across Canada, they still hold many of our ancestors and belongings taken without our consent. There has been progress. More museums are starting to listen, and some have returned sacred items and ancestors to our nations. We see new policies, recognition under UNDRIP, and the start of partnerships where our voices actually matter. And that's been a long time coming, but as we know, the work isn't done. It's not enough. The process is slow, complicated, and often expensive for our communities. There isn't a consistent national policy or framework. I think we're going to hear that a few times. And proper funding is definitely missing. Museums and institutions still need to put our self-determination front and center with clear commitments for free, prior, and informed consent. So to truly move forward, we need a strong Indigenous national framework. This means clear laws, because as we all know, they certainly aren't clear, especially when the laws were written without our involvement in them. We also need steady long-term funding and real respect for our leadership and our ways, because again, as we know, we're talking about people and sites and places and ancestors and objects from before Canada was Canada. So it should be us at a much higher level, at an equal level. So this isn't just about returning objects, it's about bringing healing and future strength back to our people.
you, Brandy. And Janice, maybe again, from a museum perspective, what are some of the gaps that might have to be filled and some of the actions that have been taken?
Yes, and similar to what Brandy has said, we are seeing positive steps being taken by museums and institutions, creating policies themselves to work with communities. However, as Brandy also alluded to, a lot of this work still relies on the communities to do a lot of the heavy lifting. That's, doing the research, locating the belongings, accessing site visits, arranging travel, really at the community's expense majority of the time. A few museums do have budgets, but again, they're not able to budget every repatriation that comes through their request. So I think it's really important that that work continues to happen for a national legislative and well-funded framework. But we have seen, examples of repatriation work at community levels for over 30 years doing this, like for example in Haida Gwaii, who've done this on an international scale. And I think we can learn from them about some of their best practices of how they've done repatriation. They're very good at cultural diplomacy, but again, one of the biggest gaps we are seeing is funding for communities and also funding for the museums to work in repatriation.
Thank you, Janice. So we've heard that communities still have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So Grand Chief Wilson, in your role, how do you see that happening in your communities, and maybe what are the supports that communities would need to be able to do these kinds of things?
Well, thank you. And so I just want to, acknowledge all of the work that is already currently being done to repatriate, rematriate, and all of our ancestors and artifacts or sacred items. And so when I think about our First Nations leadership, we're dealing with so many different things every single day. And when we talk about our sacred items, we talk about our ancestors. Here in Manitoba, we had just completed a ceremony where one of the institutions actually returned some of our ancestors, which is very disheartening to me to think about that our ancestors, our loved ones, our family are still in these institutions. And so right now, we do need to have a national framework where it gives our communities, our leadership, the ability to be able to take back what is rightfully ours and what belongs to our nations. And so when I think about that national framework, we need to come together, and it's all about coming together, because all of our artifacts, our sacred items, our ancestors, we see them all across the world internationally. And when we talk about Bill C-5 right now, I know we will be talking about this more as Canada wants to enter into our territories and start, or they're wanting to dig up our resources. So there needs to be a national framework where we are protecting our rights as First Nations when it comes to our sacred items. Miigwech.
Thank you, Grand Chief. And Brandy, as someone who has their own organization, who centers projects around First Nations perspectives, what are some of the bigger barriers that we have to face?
Okay. Dedicated funding, we're going to keep saying that because it is one of the biggest barriers. Also, processes can be very long and complicated. Sometimes we are given an awful lot of hoops to jump through, and just when we're about to jump through that last hoop, they change the hoops. So that's one thing that I've really seen over the years. There's also not enough support for the people doing this work. And that's something that I've really seen in Ontario. I don't think there's any other First Nations person that is a professional archaeologist, for example. There are a lot of people that are doing the work, but we need people to have technical knowledge to be able to look at the reports, understand what is being said in those reports so the community can understand as well. So that technical knowledge, we need something put in place to be able to teach people. Not everybody has the time to be able to go through and get degrees and do all that kind of stuff. There are different avenues, different ways to do it. So supporting that technical knowledge. There also museums, governments, universities, they still don't fully respect our authority and don't make it easy to access what does belong to us. Again, there's a lot of hoops to go through. So that needs to be changed. That's a big barrier too. We also need to think about habitation sites. Through the documentation that I've been looking at, we talk about protecting ancestors. We talk about protecting burial sites and sacred objects. I've seen the word artifact. But with progress coming, with all these different bills coming into place, habitation sites are being hit, and often those are the ones that we see more of. So what kind of protections are going to be put in place for those? Because we could have an entire village wiped out to be able to do like a subdivision, for example. So these are some of the things that really need to be discussed a whole lot more, and I wish we did have a whole lot more time. I was telling people on the panel here that, you know, we could talk about this for a week, if not longer, and still not get to everything. So more time to actually come and talk and have the knowledge keepers there, have the elders there, have the youth there to be able to go through all of these things. So, and I'll make it quick. I do have some notes here, but we need that real respect for our knowledge, and we need resources for healing. And that's something that museums and institutions don't often think about when we're talking about ancestors and having that understanding that they've been sitting in boxes for decades in some cases. Healing needs to occur with communities. So we need funding for that to be able to support that as well. And not just funding for just administrative purposes. So another thing to think on. And clearly there's a lot of barriers. I'll just mention a few more. Legal and policy changes. There's a lot of urgency to have that occur. And I know that we're all going to come together and we're going to do the things that we need to do, but having that understanding of barriers, and these are just some of the things that I've seen being an archaeologist. It's 22 years now that I've been doing the work, so a lot of barriers, and I think I'll leave it there and hope we get to come back and talk with each other for a week, 2 weeks, maybe not 2 weeks, but I'll leave it there.
Thank you. My next question is more specifically for Grand Chief Kyra. We know that Hudson's Bay has recently entered creditor protection and began liquidating its assets. No? Okay. And we know that this includes thousands of historical artifacts. First Nations have raised concerns, and it's been in the media, that sacred and cultural belongings could be sold without consultation from First Nations in this process, making it a national issue, knowing the scope of the Hudson's Bay Company. So in your role as Grand Chief, as someone who was chief of their community, what are your perspectives and implications on this file, and maybe how, in a national approach, we could see this?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Just thinking about the process and the experience that we've had at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, you know, we were only made aware of what was happening with Hudson's Bay through a news article, actually. And thankfully, you know, we have a great team at AMC, and they had flagged us that Hudson's Bay, or HBC, was going to be auctioning off these sacred items, I guess you could say, these items that they had. And that was something that we wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to actually review and take a look at what they have, you know, what belongs to our nations. Like HBC has such a deep-rooted, dark history within Manitoba. And, you know, one of the first stores or trading posts, you know, was actually developed or built in York Factory. And, there's so much information that we're still learning about. And of course, in this process, AMC, we've had to sign an NDA. And how does that, reflect that sacred work in returning these sacred items to our nations when we're having to sign NDAs? As First Nations people, it's all about coming together, and when you're signing NDAs, it puts up barriers for that. So there needs to be, some legislative reform that protects any individual or company that may be trying to sell or auction off anything that belongs to our First Nations. So that's the first thing. There needs to be legislation that protects us and our sacred items, anything that belongs to our nations. No one should be able to sell or auction off those items. But also there needs to be protocols in place. When you think about industry, when they come into our territories and they start digging up the land, we need to have things in place where they are stopping when we are finding anything. Sometimes we hear about burial sites being encroached upon, and industry is digging up and finding things. So we need to have different ways of protecting our sacred items and our ancestors. And so just thinking about HBC, we're still, ongoing, reviewing the catalog. There definitely is a couple thousand different items. It has brought, national attention, maybe even international. So my hope with this whole process is that we will see some change systematically in regards to how Canada and the provinces protect items that belong to First Nations. Miigwech.
Thank you, Grand Chief. And now, as we head towards our closing, I might look towards each of our panelists and say, what next? What do we do with this? What do we need? How do we as First Nations, how does Canada, how do organizations do better? And I might look towards Janice to start us off.
Yes, thank you. I think one of the biggest things is working with the federal government to develop this national legislative framework, but that it's being led by the Indigenous communities in this country, that it's well funded, and that it's done in a way that is a very holistic process. So funding it from the engagement that needs to happen with our communities, because every community is different with how they would approach this, and to ensure that, it's following what they've outlined in the UNDRIP Action Plan, that they were going to develop this. So to have that follow through and to have our First Nations leaders really advocate for this with the government and to push them to do this and have it Indigenous led, because many times we're not having that done from our perspective, and in this case it has to be done from the community's perspective.
Thank you, Janice. Randy?
I'd like to say ditto to all of that, but it's a lot of very important work, and I think we kind of said already what we need to do next. There's always next steps. It's, again, going home, talking to the elders, to the knowledge keepers, to your communities, going back to your regional organizations. We have, sometimes provinces don't really work together either. One of the things that I've really noticed is that in Ontario, we're about 20, 30 years behind British Columbia in what they're doing. So we need, even on the provincial level, for those, for all these things that we've been talking about to really be pushed. So there's provincial issues, there are federal issues. We need to keep coming together and getting our voice to be louder and louder and louder. It's like braiding your hair, for example. If you have a couple strands of hair, you're going to have like a pretty weak braid. If all of us come together and really strengthen that braid, we're not going to be able to be broken. And we're clearly here this many years after contact. We can't be broken. We need to keep coming together and stay strong and bringing our voices out and doing all the things like pushing for that policy change, not just encouraging, but requiring that governments, developers, institutions, museums, universities, that they continue to discuss these things with us, and also having that, being very careful that there are still people out there that if they talk to one First Nations person, they consider that they've talked to all of us. So be very careful with that as well, and make sure that that's put out there.
Thank you. And in closing, Regional Chief.
Thank you, Cedric. You know, putting this into context of where we're at right now, and I can relate it back to British Columbia. We need these governments to work with our institutions, as my colleagues have stated, and certainly the relationship with the Hudson Bay Company, which is a construct of colonialism that came from the British Empire. We also have to talk about and think about the artifacts that were stolen and that's in the Vatican. And this is one of the reasons why I think I'm here. How many of you were at the First Nations Summit on the One Canada Act Bill C5? Just raise your hand. And when we were in Ottawa in July, if you recall the room, we were in Canada Museum there, and all of those artifacts in that room were from British Columbia. All the totem poles, all the replicas of longhouses, mass carvings, et cetera, et cetera. And this was the issue I had, is I certainly hope that there's arrangements with the Canadian Museum, but it speaks to our relationships with these institutions. And I know in British Columbia, for example, we work with the First Peoples Cultural Council. They also need to work with our First Nations. Recent report that came out of a company from the Haida Nation, the Caillou Enterprise Corporation, really highlighted a lot of the issues that we have in terms of our artifacts. That what we found was that in 2019 survey, there was approximately 2,500 remains of our ancestors within institutions. That's probably a low number. About 1,100 of those are from British Columbia. And there's approximately 6.7 million belongings and artifacts in institutions. Now that's a daunting number, and certainly that we need to better understand where our artifacts are being held. So I think I also want to reflect on sites like not only burial sites, graves, and sacred sites. I think we got to reflect back on what happened in Oka. That a development company wanted to expand, a golf course wanted to expand into our First Nations territory, and that was what we saw back in the early 90s. And that hasn't been properly dealt with. And I think that's really important to acknowledge from where we come from and where we're going. Certainly the United Nations Declaration Act and in British Columbia, UNDRIP allows ourselves to have more, I would say, take over jurisdiction over our artifacts. We're seeing more of our First Nations repatriate and rematriate the artifacts. I was lucky enough a couple of years ago to witness this in Niska, where there was a repatriation of a totem pole that was stolen and brought to Scotland, and the Scottish government brought the pole back. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge all the work that's being done out there by many First Nations across this country to repatriate and rematriate. And we need all levels of government and institutions, museums, universities to work with us. And these things are ours. I think it's our responsibility to our ancestors to not only repatriate and rematriate, but also to create the space that we need to govern it, to take over the jurisdiction that's rightfully ours. So I really want to acknowledge my panelists here and working with the Assembly of First Nations and other organizations in this country to do this very difficult work and very hard work. And despite the fact that we've been here for many, many years and we've seen small progress, the work continues. And I want to thank all of you, the archaeologists and all the experts for doing the hard work you're doing. Thank you. Merci.
So thank you to Regional Chief Terry Tiji, Brandy George, Janice Bombery, and Grand Chief Wilson for being with us, for speaking about this important topic, and for having, again, being adaptive to the needs of the Assembly. We do have a little token of recognition, and I will invite Véronique to come up for our next point.
So we now have a special guest here to address the Assembly, the Right Honorable Michaëlle Jean, 27th Governor General, Commander-Chief of Canada. I will start by doing her introduction in French, and then I will follow in English.
We have a special guest who is here to speak to the Assembly, the Honorable Michaëlle Jean, 27th Governor General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada. Michaëlle Jean was born in 1957 in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. When she was 11 years old, Canada offered political asylum to her parents who were fleeing the dictatorial regime in place in their country of origin. As Francophones, they set down roots in Quebec and faced the immense challenge of rebuilding their lives in a new country, of bringing together all their strengths and experiences, motivated by the desire to contribute as citizens of their new country. After a Bachelor of Arts in Literature and Modern Languages, Spanish and Italian at the University of Montreal, she did a Master's in Comparative Literature and was able, thanks to some scholarships, to continue her studies at the universities of Perugia, Florence, and the Catholic University of Milan. Michaëlle Jean speaks French, English, Italian, Spanish, and Creole, and is able to read Portuguese. She contributed to the Feminist Governor of Quebec and to the creation of a network of shelters for victims of domestic violence and their children on the territory of Quebec and beyond. Michaëlle Jean had a brilliant career as a journalist on French and English language networks in Canada and participated in the filming of many documentaries directed by her husband, the filmmaker and philosopher Jean-Daniel Lafont.
Governor General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada, the first Black woman to reach the highest constitutional office in the country, a function she served with extraordinary dedication for a 5-year term. At the end of this mandate, on October 1st, 2010, the United Nations immediately called upon her as UNESCO Special Envoy to support reconstruction efforts in Haiti, her native country, devastated the same year by a brutal earthquake. She also served as Chancellor of the University of Ottawa from 2011 to 2014. In 2014, Michaëlle Jean was elected Secretary General of La Francophonie, the first woman to lead this multilateral organization composing 88 states and governments on 5 continents. A seasoned stateswoman and diplomat, her words, serve to convene goodwill here, everywhere, in the multilateral sphere, in every UN forum, from New York to Geneva, all the way to the Security Council, as well as within the European Union, the European Parliament, the OECD, the African Union. She is best known and appreciated for her convictions, her deep sense of universal humanistic values, the principles and rules of democracy, the rule of law, justice, fundamental human rights, and freedom, which she never betrays. Together with her husband, Jean-Daniel Lafont, she has co-chaired the Michaëlle Jean Foundation since 2010, whose program helps support platforms and civic initiatives alongside some of the most vulnerable and disenfranchised, yet eager and creative young people in Canada, for vigorous collective action against exclusion. Michaëlle Jean currently serves as Chancellor of United College at the University of Waterloo. J'invite donc la très honorable.
I would therefore like to invite the Right Honourable Michaëlle Jean to speak to the Assembly of First Nations.
Thank you. Thank you. I must say that I'm so honored and so moved to be here today. Dear National Chief Woodhouse Nipinak, elders, chiefs, grand chiefs, knowledge keepers, veterans, delegates, friends and kin, chers amis, Tansi.
Dear friends,
I'm here accompanied by Mr. Edward Matwawana, Executive Director of the Michaëlle Jean Foundation, and my beloved husband, philosopher and internationally renowned filmmaker Jean-Daniel Lafont, who in many of his films and books has pleaded for Indigenous rights in Canada. We feel very, very privileged to participate in this annual General Assembly of the Assembly of First Nations with you all, proud Indigenous brothers and sisters. We have been listening attentively since our arrival on September 1st, and I must tell you how much my team and I have been profoundly moved and impressed. Impressed by the depth, strength, and strategic clarity of your deliberations. The force of the voices and all the voices raised in this assembly and your unwavering commitment after over 500 years of resistance is nothing short of extraordinary. What we have witnessed is a masterclass in leadership, mobilization, and determination to defend your lands, your rights, and your future. You honor us all with your brilliance and your resolve. We have so much to learn from your example. I am especially touched to see so many veterans also in the room. I recall during my time as Governor General and Commander-in-Chief of Canada from 2005 to 2010, the commemorations of the dramatic World War II landing on Juno Beach in Normandy, France, in which our Canadian soldiers took part. The Prime Minister at the time asked me to host an event for the Indigenous veterans in Ottawa, while all the other Canadian veterans were sent with all honors to Normandy. I asked, why not them? Why not recognize the Indigenous soldiers who had fought bravely for peace and freedom in Europe, many of whom never returned? I told the Prime Minister they too deserve that recognition in France. I then added, I will take them to Juno Beach. And so we went. When the French saw the proud indigenous delegation in full regalia, they were impressed and said, so they too were there to liberate us. I remember asking the veterans what was most difficult in their experience. I expected them to speak of battle, but you know what they said? They said the most difficult was coming home. How so, I asked. Because over there, they said, we were Canadian soldiers fighting shoulder to shoulder. But once we returned, we were nothing again. No benefits, no pension, no programs. We were just damned Indians, in their own words. So I shared their testimony with the government. Recognition eventually came, but it should not have taken so long. We owe them so much more. So that injustice broke my heart. I come before you as a woman of Haitian origin, a daughter of a people who rose against slavery and dispossession. Through resistance, sacrifice, and alliance with the first peoples of the land, the Taino, Carib, and Arawak, we victoriously fought the French colonial dominating power, broke the chains of slavery, and forged the first black republic in the world, the Republic of Haiti, La République d'Haïti. We reclaimed the native name of the territory, Haiti Boyo-Quisqueya, which means our sacred land of many mountains. I speak to you with humility and respect as one who walks on Treaty 1 territory and who recognizes your rightful place, not only in this country, but I would say in the moral conscience of the world. Let me begin with words from the 2024 Halifax Declaration for the Eradication of Racial Discrimination, which thousands from across Canada have helped shape at the 3rd National Black Canadians Summit, one of the flagship programs of the Michaëlle Jean Foundation during the International Decade of People of African Descent proclaimed by the United Nations. It says, we Canadians of African descent stand in full recognition of and in solidarity with the indigenous peoples who have lived on this vast continent for millennia. We reject the doctrine of discovery, a pretense that allowed predatory European empires to conquer, seize, and dispossess the lands of the indigenous nations who, as we recognize, never ceded them. These words are not symbolic. They are a solemn pledge, a recognition that our histories, while distinct, are intertwined, and that our liberation must be as well. Let me share just a bit more from that collective document. Just as the indigenous nations of the Americas were despoiled by European empires, so too were our ancestors in Africa. The populations of the African nations were mercilessly deprived of their land, language, culture, their rights, and basic humanity. We urge recognition of the fact that in Canada, as elsewhere in the Americas, indigenous peoples and those deported from Africa have for centuries been subjected to the worst violence, enslavement, exploitation, degradation, and had their lives and culture massacred. We urge recognition of the fact that colonization was an abhorrent crime against humanity from the outset, and that such acknowledgement, seeking to decolonize our institutions, systems, and laws, is both beneficial and necessary. We urge recognition of the fact that we do not emerge unscathed from centuries of domination and utter dehumanization dictated by the ideology of the supremacy of the white race. The lingering effects of this racism continue to fuel hatred, prejudice, and exclusion. As a result, we still endure its devastating repercussions and injustices, coupled with the denial of our history, existence, condition, and contribution to global development. So such are the opening articles of the Halifax Declaration for the Eradication of Racial Discrimination, words I come bearing in my heart. You know better than anyone what it means to see your land stolen, your languages silenced, your children taken and their needs ignored. And I do not speak these words lightly. We too, African peoples, were stripped of our names, our families, our sacred ties to place, torn from our lands and cast into slavery. We arrived in the Americas in chains, and too often our suffering has been buried in silence. But the truth is this: colonialism did not happen in the past. It is still happening. It lives on in the poisoned water, the over-incarceration, the loss of land, the deaths in custody, and the dispossession of our children through foster care. A legacy that spans both Indigenous lives and Black lives. In Canada today, Indigenous people make up roughly 5% of the population, and over 30% of those in prison. Black Canadians too are disproportionately arrested, sentenced, and surveilled. Our shared pain is not a coincidence. It is a direct result of systems designed to marginalize, exclude, exploit, and erase. We had a good conversation about that, the National Chief and I. And some ask, and may ask, why build this alliance now? Because we are seeing across the Americas and around the world a resurgence of hatred, racial violence, and dehumanization. Here in Canada, too many Indigenous women remain missing, many murdered. The systemic injustices laid out in your opening speech, National Chief, my dear friend Cindy, are overwhelming, outraging, and the fight is more than justified, it is essential. And I salute the spirit of resistance and vigilance you bear. Now, we see governments remove facts from classrooms, books being banned, histories and truths being hidden, rights revoked, and voices like ours, Indigenous, Black, racialized, being pushed once more to the margins. We must not let this tide roll over us in silence. Now is the time to say no more, and to say it together, to forge a united front rooted in our shared values, kinship, ceremony, land stewardship, resistance, care, and love. Not an alliance of convenience, but of conviction. Not to erase difference, but to honor it. Not to speak over one another, but to uplift one another. Amplify each other's voices across nations, across territories, across generations. This is why I have come. With the strong support of Premier Wapkinyu, we are preparing to host the 5th National Summit for the Eradication of Racial Discrimination right here in Winnipeg, September 18 to 20, 2026. And this summit will be different. It will be a Black and Indigenous summit. A gathering of youth and elders, artists and activists, knowledge keepers, visionaries, leaders, and warriors. Together, we will co-create the Winnipeg Manifesto, a living declaration of our collective will to dismantle racial discrimination in all its forms. I know that partnerships like this take courage, but we have courage, don't we? There may be hesitation. After all, Indigenous nations have spent generations defending hard-won ground, and rightly so. Some may say that shared work may dilute, Indigenous priorities or eclipse sovereignty. But I believe, with all my heart, that this alliance can be a circle of respect, one that strengthens, not weakens, one that builds power without erasing identity. We are not asking to take space. We are asking to hold space together in full respect of each nation's voice, vision, and sovereignty. So today I extend an invitation to the National Chief, who has accepted, to the chiefs and delegates here assembled, to the women and two-spirit leaders, to the youth who carry the fire. Come stand with us in Winnipeg in September 2026. Let us declare side by side that we will no longer be defined by oppression, but by our visions for justice, healing, and future. Here's another truth. We are a gift to Canada. We together are a gift to Canada because we are the antidote to what is ailing the society and this planet. Because we hold the key to how Canada can become inclusive, grounded, and whole, rooted in respect of all peoples and respect for Mother Earth. Because we fight for the common good of all. So let us walk forward, not behind, not ahead, but together. In the words of our elders, we are the ancestors of tomorrow. So may we walk in beauty, in a way that makes their memory proud. On these words, I want to say Miigwech, merci, thank you.
Merci beaucoup à la très honorable Michaëlle Jean.
Thank you to the Honorable Michaëlle Jean for these words, and thanks to her for accepting this invitation.
The remarks of the newly Honorable Michaëlle Masti. So Michaëlle Masti, she was the first woman to be elected as Grand Chief of the Grand Council of the Cree in EUSG in Quebec. And this year, she became the first Indigenous person to hold this position, the position of Minister of Indigenous Services. Ensuite, on a une vidéo de la très honorable.
We then have a video of the Honorable Michaëlle Masti, who was the first woman to be elected Grand Chief of the Cree Nation EUSG. And this year she became the first Indigenous person to become the Minister of Indigenous Services. She prepared a video for the Assembly.
Encore, can we put the video up?
Bonjour, hello. Egunji shishim hitgud uday deche dayan anishtabek Algonquin iu tudashima. I'm speaking to you from the unceded traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. Thank you for inviting me to join the 46th Annual General Assembly. I regret that I'm not able to attend in person, but I'm looking forward to meeting and seeing you in person as part of my ministerial engagements throughout the country. I want to acknowledge and thank the chiefs, the grand chiefs, regional leadership, and national leadership from across this country that have reached out and expressed their congratulations and support to me in my appointment to work with you. Your members, your communities are a critical part of that work. It will be my greatest honor to work with you in this new capacity. When I previously served as Grand Chief of my nation, I always valued the chance to listen, learn, and connect during these sessions. Today, I return as the Minister of Indigenous Services, and it will be a pleasure to continue this process and now also serve you in this role and work alongside you. Thank you for your invitation and welcome me into this space. During this week's time together, I know that many communities continue to face serious challenges, especially due to the ongoing wildfire season. I want to acknowledge the work that you've undertaken to protect your communities and your members' safety. We continue to work closely with those affected communities and working with the partners who deliver support, safety, and ensure that we're looking at long-term critical recovery. Nos défis rappelons pourquoi les partenariats solides dans un dialogue ouvert.
We want to have an open dialogue. This is essential, and I am committed to carrying your voices at the negotiation tables. I will make sure that they are heard and respected.
New solutions are created and partnerships are strengthened. Our partnership with communities will be critical as we address long-standing key issues such as child and family services, infrastructure gaps, mental health, wellness, and substance abuse, and supports in First Nations communities. In the past few weeks, I've had the opportunity to connect with many of you to begin engagement discussions in seeing what direction your communities want to take. I'm very encouraged by the dialogue and the feedback as a preliminary first step. In the next few months, you will see those discussions helping to inform our efforts to contribute to the solutions that you are leading. Firstly, we are taking on your direction and will be hosting a Jordan's Principle Forum to address the needs of our children. This session will be critical to ensure that we are working to respect the legacy of Jordan River Anderson. A call from his father, Ernest Anderson, in January 2025 came to us, and we want to ensure that we are respecting the integrity of delivering the process and the legacy that his son has established. At Indigenous Services Canada, we want to respect that request and work to bring this ruling into an implementation space that will honor that. Secondly, solutions that also include strengthening infrastructure by improving access to reliable transportation, green energy systems, internet connectivity, well-built homes, and other essential community assets are the next step.
It is essential that this government support programs and services that are led by Indigenous peoples, for Indigenous peoples, to address mental health issues and substance use issues, for example. We need to hear your leaders to be as well-informed as possible in our approaches.
This role as the Minister of Indigenous Services. I look to follow your lead as we move forward together and make these changes and transform what is necessary for our future generations so that we leave our kids and our grandkids in a better world. Lastly, we must remember that we continue to face the daily pressure of economic war on Canada, a reality that will also evolve into threats around security, sovereignty, and most likely access to essential goods and services in the community. We could see impacts such as construction costs, expanding into infrastructure, capital projects, housing, and also maybe an increase of cost of living, household expenses, items such as food baskets increasing in price. More importantly, we want to ensure that we are able to address the potential pressure on public services and health sectors, critical medical transportation. We want to work together to respond and protect First Nations communities, territories, and their members. In the next few short weeks, my ministerial colleagues and I are going to embark on regionalized discussions to engage communities in the identification of potential nation-building projects. We're also going to look at consultation processes, the Major Projects Office, and the Indigenous Advisory Council. This approach will follow through with the Prime Minister's commitment to creating a path forward to evaluate and determine which nations will be building projects that will be critical to responding to the economic challenges that we face. Over the next few weeks, I'll also be engaging in critical discussions with communities around decisions that have been taken with regards to issues like registration of First Nations people, as well as child family services. These outcomes require Canada to respond to a legal responsibility, but more importantly, they're the right thing to do to ensure that we can truly meet the needs of Indigenous communities across this country. To protect your identities, to protect our families, to protect our communities, and to protect the honor of who they are as part of the Canadian fabric. The Indigenous thread of this fabric runs through every department in this government. I'm working with my colleagues to ensure that we are all undertaking the responsibility to serve you. I want to wish each and every one of you a successful and productive 46th Annual General Assembly. I hope your leadership and your dedication inspire the change that we all need. I look forward to walking this path with you and determining the future of our peoples. Miigwech Janaskumpno. Thank you. Merci.
So thank you to Honorable Michaëlle Masti for her words. I will now turn over the microphone to Adam to proceed with resolutions.
Thank you very much, Veronique. So it is now, what time is that? Better double check. 10:42. We will now get into resolutions. What I'd like to do is, Chiefs are wondering which order we're going to go through the resolutions. So just to let you know, obviously we will continue until 2 p.m. As quickly as we can through many resolutions. The resolutions team has put together baskets of resolutions. So resolutions with common themes that we can deal with together. Sometimes certain resolutions have to be pulled from those baskets and dealt with separately. So if I can have encore, I'm hoping you have a copy of the resolutions that we will be going through, just the order of the resolutions, if you can put that on the screen. This morning, we will start with resolution number 53. So draft resolution 53, that's a continuation from yesterday evening, the child and family and child resolutions. And then we will go to draft resolution number 4. And then we have a series of baskets. So the team has put together 8 baskets of resolutions. We'll go to basket number 1, dealing with economic development, infrastructure, and trade. So that's basket number 1. It's up on your screen. And then we'll deal with draft resolution number 36. And then basket number 2. And then following basket number 2, so if you can scroll down on the slide up on the screen, basket number 2 would be dealing with health. And then we've got draft resolutions 10 and 11. And then basket number 3 is the resolutions dealing with justice. Basket 4 deals with fisheries and emergency management. Basket number 5, treaties and lands. Following 5, basket number 6, dealing with environment, water, and mining. Basket 7, survivors. And then resolutions, draft resolutions 37, 38 will be done independently. And then basket number 8, dealing with education, languages, and data justice. And then draft resolution 42. That is the order. That does not include the late resolutions that were submitted. Obviously, according to the rules that you've passed, we get to those late resolutions after all of the on-time resolutions have been dealt with. So that's the order that we will be following. We'll try and go as efficiently as we can. We know the chiefs, you've traveled a long ways to get your resolutions dealt with so that we can make decisions. The best way to get to all of those is to efficiently go through them and then get to the vote and make a decision. You can show your support or state your objections as well. So before we start, I see two chiefs at the microphones. Microphone number 1, please.
Sitting here, I'm thinking, listening to Her Excellency Michaëlle Jean, our Indian Affairs Minister. I felt something when Our Excellency spoke. I felt it in my heart. But it's the same story we're told, these government bureaucrats. I felt nothing with her speech, nothing. But with Michaëlle Jean, I felt emotion. Her words were sincere, Gayam Higwak. That's what made me feel that way. But when our Indian Affairs Minister spoke, how true are her words? Because it's the same line they throw us every time to change what our needs are. But yet they don't come to our communities to really look at the remote structures, remote communities infrastructure. And I was thinking with Bill 5 and C5, this is the time where Carney should say, we're going to untie ourselves from you, to govern ourselves, to govern our lands, to go back to our language. That's what I like to see happen. So a message to Prime Minister Carney is just untie yourselves from us. Because what Her Excellency was talking, we got to go that road. Forming alliances. As Indian chiefs, we seem to be struggling to work together because of all personal differences. Kon kensinano jish seokon, nande spenum mokon, kchinenum mokon, kon gita basan desimin kitanchina nakaj mugawad. We cannot bring ourselves to our people's level that we represent. Bituaken, there are issues to the floor here. So I like to say, why cheer? Migening jenigyo yachkop take Jack. Mando gaknago shenum gumgaw ma gaknagum kondon aki kayam chiang gona gak chok mak kabot pache
Amigos, pache ogmak. Microphone 2.
Morning, Proxy Chief Regina Crowchild from Sotina. I'm just wondering where does Resolution 19 and 27 fit in? I didn't see it, and my name is spelled R-E-G-E-N-A, not I-N-A. I'm not from Regina. So where are those two resolutions?
Gwetch, thank you, Proxy Crowchild. I'm just checking with the team. So the first basket that we would be going through includes draft resolution 19.
Well, it wasn't up there. That's why I'm questioning it.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just looking at it. I have two lists here, but we do have draft resolution 19 as part of the first basket. So
Okay,
thank
and
you.
what about 27?
The second one, draft resolution 27, I have a note here that it has been deferred. I just can get some clarification in terms of the process, but the request has been made to defer that resolution.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
You
I
got-
want to speak to Resolution 19 because I'm the mover on that.
Very good. Thank you. Miigwech, thank you. So we're just checking, and draft resolution 19 is part of the first basket. So we'd like to get into the resolutions. Again, a continuation of the youth resolutions from yesterday. So if I can have Encore put up draft resolution number 53, please. This is draft resolution 53. A reminder, we had lengthy discussions yesterday with some of the concerns, some of the issues, the opposition, the support for the similarly themed resolutions. What needs to happen now is we need to make a decision. So this is draft resolution 53. It's up on the screen. I just need to confirm that the mover and the seconder are in the room. It is moved by Chief Pauline Frost. And Chief Frost is here, thank you. Seconded by Chief Rebecca Knockwood, who I thought was here, but I just want to confirm. A comment on the seconder? Microphone 2, please.
Unfortunately, the seconder had to leave and go home, so we have a seconder here that will move.
Thank you. Just for the record, if you can state your name, seconder.
Chief Kelsey Jocko, Cold Lake First Nations.
Thank you. Chief Jocko will second the resolution. So the resolution is up on the screen. If I can go down to the therefore be it resolved, please, on the screen. Resolution reads, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations and Assembly, 1, condemn Canada for failing to advance reconciliation by A, dishonorably violating its positive duty of diligent implementation, B, not immediately ending its systemic discrimination and fully complying with Canadian Human Rights Tribunal CHRT orders, and C, terminating national long-term reform consultations on July 11th, 2024, and failing to obtain an adequate new negotiation mandate to ensure that systemic discrimination does not recur. 2, call upon Canada to immediately end its systemic discrimination and obtain a new negotiation mandate that is aligned with the mandate provided by First Nations and Assembly and the CHRT orders. 3, direct the NCC to work with the Caring Society and the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, in consultation with First Nations and First Nations organizations to develop an evidence-based comprehensive national FNCFS long-term reform plan and request remedies consistent with 2025 CHRT 80. 4, direct the AFN, consistent with its sacred duty, to implement the decisions of First Nations and Assembly to support the NCC to fulfill the mandate vested to it by the First Nations and Assembly, which includes A, advocating to Indigenous Services Canada, ISC, to fund the NCC according to the budget request submitted to ISC by the AFN on behalf of the NCC on April 23, 2025. B, where legal processes are concerned, ensuring that all instructions to AFN legal counsel fully align with the positions provided by the NCC, consistent with the decisions of the First Nations and Assembly, provided that such positions do not conflict with the AFN Charter, its bylaws, or decisions of First Nations and Assembly or Executive Committee, and provided that they do not direct AFN legal counsel to litigate against one or more regions of the AFN or certain members of the First Nations in Assembly. That is the resolution, and I just should clarify, when I said NCC, it's actually NCCC. I was missing one C in all of that, but that's what we're talking about. That's the resolution before you. Again, time to make a decision. We had good discussions yesterday. I will turn to the mover now to comment on the resolution. Microphone 2, please.
My name is Pauline Frost. I am the Chief of Funtaputchan First Nation in the Yukon. I am also the Chair of the National Children's Chiefs Commission. It's an honor to be here with you this morning to speak to Resolution 53. There are, as you noted and as read into the record, therefore be it resolved, and then there gives in that therefore be it resolved specific recommendations in terms of direction moving forward. The committee has met and have determined that we are going to withdraw resolution number 53. We appreciate the time that you have given us yesterday and the opportunity really to report back to you, because that's the mandate you've given us, and I hope that we did it justice yesterday in giving you an update on where things we're at with the Human Rights Tribunal, the National Children's Chiefs Commission, our mandate, our terms of reference, and our objectives moving forward. With that strong mandate, we have some marching orders, and that's to work with Canada, the Caring Society, and Assembly First Nations to look at the discrimination against children and families, and the objective is to address that and have some reports back to you by December. We will come back to you over the next few weeks and months, and we'll look at regional consultations with all of you. And I think during that time, you'll give us your insights and perspectives as to how you'd like to move forward within your regions. We encourage you to join all of the consultation sessions. We encourage you to reach out to your national organization, to the NCC, to your commissioners, and we will continue to bring back as much information as we can to you. We don't want to have any unanswered questions. So if you have uncertainty, you're not clear, please reach out to us. I encourage you to go to the website, use the cards to get access to the websites as well. We handed that out yesterday. We did bring this resolution forward prior to the CHR ruling, and so now we have certainty and clarity. I think it gives us some, from you and from the floor, the direction with the previous two resolutions to move forward. So we will therefore withdraw resolution number 53. It's always an honor and a privilege to stand before the Assembly and speak truth to where we are with respect to our children, but also to look to you for guidance and direction on how you'd like us to advance through the National Children's Chiefs Commission, through Resolution 60 and 61. Human Rights Tribunal rulings have given us really, I think, direct marching orders to get this work done. So I'm honored to be the chair for this time, and I just want to thank the commissioners for their dedication to this good work, and all of you for giving us the time yesterday. So Masi Cho.
Miigwech, thank you. So just to clarify, you are withdrawing for now draft resolution 53.
That is correct.
Great, thank you. And we have the mover and seconder's concurrence, obviously. Thank you. Okay, Miigwech, thank you. So Chiefs, we will now move on to the next resolution, which is draft resolution number 4. So if I can have Encore, please put up draft resolution 4 up on the screen, and we'll give them a minute to get it up on the screen. Draft resolution number 4 is titled Emergency Health, Public Safety, Substance Use, Drug Crisis, Policing, Community Wellness. It is moved by Chief Angela Lavasseur. Can I confirm Chief Lavasseur is here? Thank you. Sometimes I can't see. Seconded by Chief Lisa Young. Is Chief Lisa Young? Thank you. So the mover and the seconder are here. Just waiting for draft resolution number 4 to go up on the screen, but you do have it in your packages when you registered. Also, it's available on the website. So I just was waiting for the resolution to go on the screen, but if it doesn't come up soon, I will start reading the resolution. You do have a copy. Draft resolution number 4, please, up on the screen. Encore, hopefully you can find it. But I will read the resolution. It reads, there it is. Therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly 1 declare a First Nations-wide state of emergency in relation to the fentanyl, opiate, drug, alcohol, and bootlegging crisis currently devastating First Nations families and communities across Canada. 2, direct the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, to express support in principle for the objectives of Harlan's Law as proposed by Advocate Joseph Four, which aims to hold individuals criminally responsible for illegally selling fentanyl or similarly toxic substances that result in overdose deaths. 3, call upon the Prime Minister of Canada and the Ministers of Public Safety, Justice Canada, Health, Indigenous Services Canada, and Crown Indigenous Relations to adequately and meaningfully engage with First Nations to identify and implement vital components of Bill C-2 that would immediately meet the needs of First Nations. Further, that all relevant federal departments immediately partner with First Nations leadership and coordinate an emergency national intervention while ensuring core funding is in place to support culturally appropriate responses focused on First Nations public safety strategies and withdrawal management and treatment centres. 4, call upon the Government of Canada to commit sustained multi-departmental resources to confront the root causes of the fentanyl, opiate, and substance use epidemic, with a focus on wrapping resources around prevention, intervention, rehabilitation programs, and access to naloxone for all First Nations. 5, direct the AFN Secretariat to seek funding to establish a national emergency task force on First Nations health, comprised of relevant chiefs committees, First Nations leaders, mental health experts, researchers, knowledge keepers, youth, and law enforcement partners to guide a restorative and fair response to the substance misuse crisis in communities. So that is the resolution. It is up on the screen. I will turn to the mover. Microphone 2, please.
Thank you. Danse, good morning. My name is Chief Angela Levisser, and I am Chief of the Nissittuwasset Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. I brought this resolution forward because our nations are in crisis. The fentanyl and opioid epidemic is killing our people, tearing families apart, and overwhelming our communities. This resolution demands immediate federal intervention, not after more lives are lost, but now. In Manitoba and across Canada, fentanyl poisonings are taking lives daily. Our frontline workers and families are doing all they can, but support from federal and provincial governments remains fragmented, underfunded, and reactive. This resolution is about human rights, survival, and justice. In keeping with this resolution, I want to honor the memory of Harlan Fourier, a young man from Norway House Cree Nation who died tragically from fentanyl poisoning at the age of 31. On April 22nd, 2023, in the PA and OCN, at least 6 people were poisoned by drugs laced with fentanyl. Of the 4 men who overdosed, 3 were revived with naloxone, but Harlan, who was known for saying, "No thanks, I'm good," when offered drugs, did not survive. His father, Joseph, had to make the heartbreaking decision to remove him from life support. The majority of us here are parents, aunties, uncles, grandparents, and we cannot even begin to imagine Joseph Fourier's pain. What is even more devastating is that no one was ever charged. The RCMP said that because Harlan had consented to ecstasy, there was no law to hold anyone accountable for his death. Out of this grave injustice came Harlan's Law. What Harlan's Law proposes is that it's a drug-induced homicide act, a vital amendment to section 245-1 of the Criminal Code, administering a noxious thing. Harlan's Law closes a loophole. The intent should not matter. If someone sells or shares fentanyl-laced drugs that cause death or injury, they must be held criminally responsible. I will now give the rest of my time to Harlan's dad, Ikosani.
Thank you. Under Harlan's Law, the proposed penalties would include a 5-year minimum years imprisonment for trafficking fentanyl, life imprisonment with a minimum 15 years if death occurs. Harlan's Law would give law enforcement the tools they need to access victims' cell phones, which could ultimately lead to where they purchased the drugs from, and investigate this properly and hold traffickers accountable. Why this matters? Our communities are being deliberately targeted by traffickers who exploit the gaps in this law. Without Harlan's Law, along with the Drug-Induced Homicide Act, accountability is missing. Fentanyl poisoners have no recourse for the lives they take. This law would save lives by creating consequences, disrupting supply chains, and making fentanyl the least desirable drug to traffic. This resolution directs the AFN and calls on Canada to declare a First Nation statewide emergency on fentanyl and on the substance abuse crisis. Support Harlan's Law and push for its adoption as part of a new Drug-Induced Homicide Act. Demand federal action on Bill C-2, Strong Borders Act, to ensure First Nations needs are addressed. Secure sustained resources for awareness and prevention, treatment, detox, aftercare, and naloxone distribution. Establish a national emergency task force for chiefs, youth, knowledge keepers, health experts, and law enforcement to guide a culturally grounded response. Let us be clear, this resolution is a call for justice, accountability, and urgent action. We believe a state emergency must be called. The adoption of Harlan's Law and the Drug-Induced Homicide Act, multi-departmental funding, and a national task force led a First Nations-driven response to the crisis our communities find ourselves in. No family should ever endure what our family and many other families have endured during this crisis. No children should be poisoned without impunity. For the safety of all First Nations across Canada, we insist these actions be taken so that lives will be saved. I urge you to support this resolution and help us save lives. And I want to thank you for giving me the honor to stand here to say my son's name, Singing Red Bear. He was a good man, and he did deserve the end that he got. He made one bad choice, but he didn't deserve to die because of it. Ayose.
Miigwech. Seconder, microphone 1.
Good morning, everyone. Chief Lisa Young, Bloodvein River First Nation. I stand in support of this resolution. Last year, our First Nation experienced over 30 deaths, a majority of them related to drug and alcohol. We can no longer sit by and watch our youth, our young adults, our mothers, our fathers leave too early. We have orphans in our community on the basis of drugs and alcohol use, and we stand here in support of this resolution. More recently, our First Nation put a check stop in our traditional territory. We monitor who come and go from our First Nation because we have non-Indigenous people coming into our First Nation selling drugs and alcohol. We have fentanyl, heroin, crack cocaine, coming into our nations, destroying the lives of our youth. And we want to stop it. We want to put a stop to it, and in doing so, we put in our check stop so we are able to monitor. We also need the support of the RCMP. They're there, but they're not doing what we would like for them to do. They take the drugs that are confiscated. However, they don't press charges on the individuals. Our safety officers and our security team that we've hired to come in to do the work that we need done, they're not pressing charges on those that are held accountable to bringing these drugs in. And we need that support. We need to push that. We're happy that some of the successes that we've made, we're happy with the reduction of the drugs coming in, but there needs to be more done. Our check stop isn't going anywhere. We're utilizing whatever funding we have, but we could use more. We see this as a means of protection. We label it as though when you travel from province to province, when you go to the international airport and you go through security, that's the way we identify it. We're just monitoring who is coming and going from our First Nation, and we have no intention of taking it down on the basis of providing that protection for our community members. And we thank everyone that's been supportive. We thank those that are working those front lines. As a social worker by trade, for far too long, Child and Family Services is known as these breaking up of families, and it's about time that we start pointing our finger in the direction of these drug dealers and bootleggers and saying they're the ones to blame and it's not the child and family's fault. It's unfortunate that some families, get separated, but it's about time that we put that accountability on those drug dealers and bootleggers, and enough is enough. And so I stand here, and our nation supports that. Miigwech.
Miigwech, thank you. So the resolution is before you. A couple of things. Number one is Encore, if you can help me out. The screen that I'm looking at is not the full Zoom necessarily. Apparently I might be missing some hands when they are raised, but I do see one hand that is raised there. So I just will need some help there to make sure that I acknowledge everyone online if they've raised their hand. So the resolution is before you. I do have 3 chiefs, 1 online, 2 on the floor. Again, we have many decisions to get to. If you support the resolution, please indicate so. If you are opposing, please indicate. The best way to support all of the decisions need to be made, of course, is to get to the vote, and that's when your decision is made. So the more efficiently we can get to the vote, the more decisions can be made. I just wanted to remind that. We'll start with microphone number 1.
Michaëlle, HS Business Passes, Kavapluks. Hello everyone, my name is Chief Dan Wilson, Chief of the Okanagan Indian Band near Vernon, BC. I'm speaking in support of this resolution. I just want to point out that we've been dealing with this opioid crisis from day one. I was reading a book right now. It's called The Company of Adventurers by Peter C. Newman in regards to the fur trade. States right in there that the fur companies, the Northwest Company and the Hudson Bay Company, especially when they amalgamated in 1821, states right in the book there's how they mixed opioid with brandy and rum, and that's what they sold to us. That was the Indian hooch. And I remember about 20 years ago visiting a friend, Robert Firstarcher from the Blood Reserve, and he was telling me about Fort Whoop-Up near Lethbridge, and about men showing up to the fort trying to sell their wives and children just for another bottle of this opium-laced rum and brandy. So I just want to point it out, that we need to understand our history and what we're up against. In my neck of the woods, I recently discovered that the Freemasons were the first settlers in our territory. We knew the Catholic Church. We knew Father Pandolsi, Father Lejeune, and other clergy. We could recognize them, and of course we all experienced our families experienced the residential schools. But the Freemasons, if you Google them, they claim to be a beneficial organization, but if you dig deeper, they're not. So we've been up against worldwide organizations since day one. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Thank you. Miigwech. Microphone 2.
Kelsey Jacko, Cold Lake First Nations. I'm in support of this resolution. In our nation, fentanyl and opioid addiction has led to soaring overdoses, preventable deaths, and long-term health impacts. Families are torn apart, children left without parents, and our social fabric is breaking. The crisis is especially acute in remote areas. Like an emergency response means the difference between life and death. gaps in current response. Despite strong local leadership, our response is severely limited by no nearby treatment or detox facilities, shortage of training professionals in remote settings, underfunded harm reduction programs, inadequate mental health supports to address underlying trauma. Why federal action is needed. The scale of this crisis demands immediate coordinated federal action. Piecemeal funding and short-term pilots are not enough. The federal government has both fiduciary and treaty obligations to act. Intervention must include sustained funding for community-based, culturally appropriate detox treatment and recovery center, support for harm reduction through safe supply dialogues and fully funded mobile wellness teams. Invest in workforce development to recruit and retain Indigenous and allied health professions. Integration of culture, healing, and clinical care to address root causes of addiction. Emergency response includes 24/7 medical first responders and paramedic programs with trained resources for community level response where EMS delays are cost and lives. Canada can also help by working with the provinces to take whole medicines off the shelf that are used to manufacture the drugs that are taking our people. You know, and it costs a lot of money to house an inmate, you know. Why can't that funding follow the individual when they get out of the jail? You know, help to become better citizens. It's very hard for me, you know, as a chief, carrying young ones to the grave, you know, way before their time. You know, a lot of grandmothers, parents are forced to look after their kids. And then we have a shortage of kinship homes too. You know, when COVID happened, we had roadblocks, you know, the crime rate right down. But it costs a lot of money fundings for the bigger reserves. We have a lot of entrances. Like in my nation, we have 4 reserves. 2 reserves are easy to control with roadblocks. But the other big reserve, it has too much entrancy. You know, the RCMP, we're praising this time because the crime rate went right down. So we need adequate funding to resolve these problems. Merci Cho.
Miigwech, thank you. Next, we will go online virtually. If we can have Encore recognize or unmute and put up on the screen Chief Cheryl Casimir, please. Chief Casimir, are you there? We will have you unmuted. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm speaking in favor of the resolution. This resolution definitely touches a lot of us who are dealing with this crisis within our respective communities. My nation declared a state of emergency a few years ago related to the opioid and drug crisis. Today, ironically, my community, I'm in the process of reviewing and approving a notice that's going to be going on our social media and our website that is advising our community members of a decision that has recently been made by leadership to ban a couple of people in our community. One is a community member, one is not. These individuals, they are being banned due to the illegal activities that they're involved with, and one of them is a well-known drug dealer with ties to gangs. So we'll be doing that shortly, probably after I finish making my comments here. 2 years ago, we lost a young woman, my niece, to a violent gun-related death, which was also linked to drugs. And that incident shook each and every one of us in my community and my nation to the core. My community has since created a task force, and that task force is made up of elders, concerned community members, leadership, and at times we also invite members of the RCMP. And the purpose of the task force is to develop strategies on how we can address this crisis that is plaguing our communities. And we know that many of you are also facing these same issues that I'm speaking of. And so further to the resolution, I'd like to call upon the AFN to host a forum to bring us together to talk about strategies, how we can support one another, what were the best practices that communities use to deal with this, because we're coming across challenges by RCMP and legal saying that, well, you really shouldn't be posting these people's names publicly because it can do this or can do that. RCMP are saying, well, we don't have the jurisdiction to enforce BCRs. You know, there's just so many excuses as to why we cannot get the support needed, but yet on the other hand, I also hear from other nations on how they've been successful in doing exactly what it is that I'm speaking of. So I'd really like to have a forum organized to bring us all together. In relation to the resolution itself, I see that it speaks to bootlegging, and I'm just wondering if the intent was that it was inclusive of drug dealing as well. If not, I think it's the first whereas. I'd like to include language to that effect, that it also extends to the drug dealing that's happening in our communities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Miigwech. Thank you, Chief Casimir. So if you can stand by, please. We just want to make sure we get the correct amendment, and if we can make sure that we have the on the screen the version that shows amendments. Chief Casimir, can you read out the amendment, please? Normally we'd run to you and the team would type it in. So if you can read it out for us slowly, and we can get that typed in. Chief Casimir, your proposed amendment. I am assuming you're still there, Chief Casimir. You are muted now, so encore, if we can have Chief Casimir unmuted and up on the screen. And if you can read out the proposed amendment, please.
The amendment is in relation to the first whereas, or sorry, therefore be it resolved. If that could be pulled up, because I don't have the resolution in front of me.
Okay, can we put that up on the screen, please? It gets a bit tricky. We're looking at you as well, and we'll have Chief Casimir, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So where are you proposing to put it?
Number one.
Number one?
Where it says, oh my goodness. Uh-oh.
Okay. Chief Casimir, we did take notes. We did take notes of what you're saying, so we might have an additional clause at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it needs to be an additional clause. I think it's just language to add, because it says declare a First Nations-wide state of emergency in relation to the fentanyl, opioid, drug, alcohol, and bootlegging crisis. I just want to add drug, maybe / drug dealing. That would address drug dealers in our communities.
Okay, so that would be under number one, where it says in relation to the fentanyl, opiate, drug, and then drug dealing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I know that in your comments you were proposing something else, so I'm going to, let's finish this. So drug dealing, and that's being changed on the screen. There it is. If we can scroll down, please, we might have some other text based on your comments. Encore, can you scroll down? So we don't have the text yet, but Chief Casimir, it's about the forum that you were recommending that the AFN establish or host, or were you providing that as a commentary and general direction as part of your notes? Chief Casimir, oh sorry, if we can have Chief Casimir unmuted, please. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. I think it was just more of a comment, and I don't know if potentially it could be added into number 3, that we're talking about departments partnering with First Nations leadership, coordinate an emergency national intervention. But I was calling upon the AFN, so perhaps before this forum that's being proposed in number 3 happens, that the AFN would look to hosting a session where leadership comes together and talks about and develops strategies that can feed into the forum that's being called upon in number 3.
Okay, so is that question then, would you like to see an amendment, or are you just stating that for the record?
I think just state that for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So just one minor amendment. Mover, mover, you're okay with it? Seconder, and I've got some lights here in my eyes. I can't see the seconder. Oh, you're okay with it? Thank you. So that's the resolution as amended with the changes accepted. Thank you. Again, if you have an amendment, if you can state so immediately so that we can have the team recognize that. Also, it looks like there is, my feel from what I'm hearing is that there is support for the resolution. So right now I see no more online, but 7 chiefs at the microphone, it looks like. The best way to be concise and to help the process in making the decision, again, is to get to the vote. Microphone number 1, please.
Thank you, Chief Archie Webas, Wannaman Lake First Nation. I support this resolution, but I just want to say something on a record that one of my fellow chiefs was asking me, how can we deal with the drug crisis that's happening in our communities? And I've told him that we're not the only ones that are being affected. Right across Canada, cities, towns, First Nation communities are all impacted. And we need to work together. We need to work with the police organizations. We need to work with the government. We need to work with provincial premiers and ministers and towns and cities to fight this, to tackle this together. But what I want to say is this: Canada is not doing enough in terms of law enforcement or even laws against these drugs. I think Canada needs to do better with their laws, because you know, that's why these precursors, enablers to make fentanyl in Canada is happening and increasing, and it's affecting our people, our young people especially, using fentanyl. Is there a way to stop it? Yes, there's a way to stop it. Canada has to have a law. They have to prosecute these people, these makers, these drug dealers in the court, and the police has to have that power to apprehend and seize, you know, people that are doing it. Maybe they don't have the power, maybe they don't have the law. So the important thing here is the law against these drugs. There has to be a law. You know, Canada needs to do better. Maybe I can just highlight something here. Wait. Okay, legal framework. Canada does have Controlled Drugs and Substances Act regulations covering precursors. Certain precursor chemicals are scheduled substances, must be licensed to import, export, produce, or distribute. Health Canada issues licenses and monitors sales of controlled precursors. Problem: many non-scheduled chemicals not yet listed can be used to make fentanyl. These loopholes are exploited until regulators catch up. labs and front companies, for example, research chemical supply firms, can operate under the veneer of legitimacy while diverting product into the black market. So these are the loopholes that we have within the rule of law.
10 seconds.
So I support this resolution, but Canada needs to do better. Thank you.
Microphone 2.
Danse Kakio, Chief Desmond Bull of the Louisville Tribe of the Musqueam Nation of Treaty 6 territory. I'm very honored to be here today. I definitely support this resolution. You know, as myself, last year I had lost 3 family members to addictions within a span of 3 months. So this type of issue is very important to me in how we look at this. It's good we are addressing the issue, but we got to look at the other side. How can we create prevention? How can we work toward dealing with those with addictions? You know, incarceration is not the answer. Yesterday we heard presentations about tribal policing and talking about tribal policing, but in that discussion there was nothing really talked about how does restorative healing look? How does restorative justice work for us? When we create a tribal police system and then we have our people go through the provincial court systems, incarceration is the only solution at those times. We need to work on better processes and programs that address these issues in determining how prevention looks for us in regards to healing. And we shouldn't be putting the jargon of, we request more funding and resources. We should be putting the jargon, we demand. We demand more resources and funding for more treatment programs, more detox centers, more capacity development and training to have our people to learn how to work with their people also in healing themselves. These are things that we need to bring forward. And including in that prevention, we need to start working with our youth and teaching them to avoid these type of things and find other solutions of developing extracurricular programs for our youth to find these outlets instead of joining gangs. So there are solutions we can work on that can better address these type of issues. So it's good we're addressing them, but let's find those solutions. Hi, hi.
Hi, Miigwech. Nobody online? Microphone 1, please.
Marcel Head, Chief of Shoal Lake Cree Nation. 3 years ago, I stood here in the Assembly, and at that time, you know, I lost a dear son to gang activity. He lost his life, you know, because of his poor choices in life. 3 years has passed, and still we're dealing with the same problem. But I think back then I did highlight, you know, the root cause, and I just want to see if I can add a friendly amendment to the resolution. Sometimes, you know, we come here and we pass resolutions, and sometimes, you know, they're pretty weak. And in this one, you know, I could see number 4, you know, where it says that multi-department resources to confront the root causes of fentanyl. That's all it says. It does not identify specifically who is the root cause. Who are these people? Who are these individuals that are the root cause? I think, chiefs in the Assembly today, we don't have to be afraid to identify the root cause. And I know one of the chiefs had mentioned, you know, gangs. But let's not stop there. Drug dealers. These are the ones that are causing hardships on our people. And I know, you know, we'll probably take a whole day, you know, describing some of the atrocities that have happened within our communities. I've had people, you know, lives ended through fentanyl. I've had lives, you know, young people that have died, you know, because of drugs. Just a couple of nights ago, my granddaughter ended up in a hospital because of a drug overdose. So I think, chiefs, you know, it's time that we get tough, use tough love on our own membership, and let's not be afraid. Because what we're doing right now in Shoal Lake, we're visiting these drug dealers. We're visiting these people that are addicted to drugs one-on-one. And we're not exploiting them, you know, we're just trying to gain their trust. And there's success stories within our communities right now. Yes, it's slow, but yet it's worth trying, reaching out to our own people. So I just wanted to make that mention on the friendly amendment, Chair. Thank you.
Miigwech. So, Chief, we worked with the committee. I just will read this for the record. I want to make sure that this is the amendment that you are asking for. It, for paragraph 4, it's up on the screen. It now says to confront the gang activity and drug dealing as root causes of the fentanyl. Is that the requested amendment? Yes. Mover, are you okay with that? And again, I apologize, the lights are in my eyes. I have to look to the mover. Are you okay with that? Okay, just a quick comment. So I'm going to go to the mover at microphone 2.
Hi there. Yes, we are okay with this. I'm thinking that I just want to propose a friendly amendment to the friendly amendment that we state to confront the root causes of colonization, including gang activity, drug dealing, and poverty. Are you okay with that, Chief?
So the chief is okay with that, so I will read that into the record, mover, and obviously it came from you.
Sorry, wrong chief.
Yeah, so I'm going to read the proposed amendment into the record. It would now say to confront the root causes of colonization, including gang activity, drug dealing, and poverty as root causes. Seconder, are you okay with that? Okay, mover and seconder are good with it. Thank you. I will now move on to, I believe, Chief, was that the final? So I think you might have like 30 seconds left.
Yeah, just one more. The makers, the producers of these, like it's coming from the States, you know, and even towards Mexico and other countries. So I think that's...
Miigwech, so it's a further amendment. So the chief is asking to include the producers of the drugs. So I'm just looking to the resolutions team. I'm looking down at my screen here. I know it may look like all you see is my forehead. My screen that I'm reading is down here. So I just want to go through that proposed amendment. Resolutions team is just looking at that. So here's what it now says. I just want to make sure that we have that change. To confront the root causes of colonization, including gang activity, drug dealing, and producing, as well as poverty, as root causes of, it doesn't sound quite right when I read it, but if that's the way it is. Drug dealing and producing, as well as poverty, as root causes of the fentanyl, opiate, etc. Mover, are you okay with that? Microphone 2, please. Microphone 2, please.
Can I recommend to confront the root causes of colonization, including gang activity, drug dealing / manufacturing, and poverty as the root causes? That might tighten it up a bit. So get rid of and producing, please. Yeah.
Manufacturing. Okay, thank you.
What about as the, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I'll read it again into the record. To confront the root causes of colonization, to confront the root causes of colonization, including gang activity, drug dealing / manufacturing, and poverty as the root causes of the fentanyl, opiate, etc. So I'm reading that, not my place to speak to resolution or amendments, but does that sound right? I'm looking to the mover who's having a discussion. That's the requested change. Seconder? Seconder is good. Okay, thank you. Miigwech, so I do see 2, maybe 7 individuals at the microphone. Again, you're all one? Okay, thank you. Microphone 2.
White Cooks Dam. My name is Irvin Way. I'm chief of the Nisgaawit Indian Band. I stand here in support of this resolution and with the father who lost his son. Those of us that went through this, you know, I had to watch my beautiful life giver lose her life over $15 with no accountability. I stand here in pain, and the drug dealers still deal their drugs, and they cause pain every day. So I think we do need to have a serious discussion in our communities also with our families, because the drug problems in our community also. We have our own band members selling drugs across Turtle Island. I wanted to first off say I kind of really emotional here when I heard Mr. Forte talk about his son, because it brings back an array of horrible memories of sitting in the hospital for 2 weeks until the Creator took my baby home. So I know what the root problem is. We're in poverty. We've always been beaten up and beaten down. And an easy way for us is to drink alcohol or put drugs into her body, they lessen the pain. But with doing that, they cause pain to the parents and families. So again, I do support this resolution. I have a lot more to say, but I didn't expect to get so emotional up here. I thank my chiefs behind me for supporting me, and I thank this committee for working hard on everything you do. And I do want to acknowledge the Treaty 1 and thank them for allowing us in their beautiful territory. And again, I do support this Cooks Jam. Thank you.
Miigwech, thank you. So I do see a number of chiefs at the microphone. Chiefs, you've told us that you have many decisions that you would like to get to with the resolutions that need to come forward, so we'd like to sort of expedite the process. But so I'm going to close the speakers list with all of those that are standing at the microphone. Microphone 1.
Ani bujo oge makanak EJ Fontaine dishtikaz saging donji ni oge makan wete saging. I just have a friendly amendment to the resolution. I support the resolution 100%. Under the therefore be it resolved, number 1, what I'm recommending that we include in the therefore be resolved is that we include declare a First Nations wide state of emergency and humanitarian crisis in our communities. And why I recommend we include humanitarian crisis, because the problems that we're facing with lawlessness and chaos and a lack of law and order in the communities is a problem that we need outside help from. We're not getting the assistance from the RCMP, the federal government, in dealing with these problems. So when we declare this as a humanitarian crisis, we're asking for assistance from other countries, and as nations, we have every right to ask for assistance from other countries in the world. So I propose that we include the text humanitarian crisis. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Ugamakan. Encore, if you can scroll up to number 1, please. Paragraph 1 has the requested amendment, and it adds state of emergency and humanitarian crisis. That's the requested amendment. Mover is good. Seconder? Thank you. Microphone number 2.
Thank you. Chief of the Nation for Pembenchikamak, David Munoz. I support the resolution, as we are all experiencing the same thing with drug and alcohol dealing in our communities, and it's killing our children and our youth. And we're having a lot of problems with that in our community. But what I wanted to add, and to add to the therefore be resolved, number 2, after core funding is in place to support culture appropriate responses, I wanted to add land-based healing programs led by knowledge keepers and elders into that clause. Also clause number 3, to add after prevention, intervention, and rehabilitation programs and access to Naxalon, wanted to add culturally grounded land-based healing programs designed by and for First Nations. And I think that we're trying to take all these accents and so forth, but we're also using modern treatment facilities and so forth. I just want to say that a lot of our land-based treatment programs and stuff are not funded and not supported, and also that's also bringing a solution to that's more culture appropriate for our children and our youth. And you know, I was helping somebody who just got out of jail yesterday, and thinking back to why he was in there for certain things and what he learned. And you know, he mentioned something that he learned more valuable on the land that he went out with the elders and so forth, and he'd like to see that happen again. So I just wanted to kind of add that, if that's okay with some friendly amendment to the mover and seconder.
Chief Munoz, if you can stand by, please. I just want to make sure we got the correct change. So paragraph 2 is the first paragraph. Encore, if you can scroll down to paragraph 2. Okay. Chief Munoz, we'll have a member of the team approach you just to make sure we have the right text. So if we can have the resolutions team go to Chief Munoz, we'll get that and we'll come back to you. So I'm not sure behind number 2, but we'll go to Mike 1.
Yeah, Wajia, Donnie Morse, Denigo, Ugumakaks, the Mexibic. This spring, we had lost 2 14-year-olds to drinking body spray. And I guess it has methanol in it. And then later on, maybe a few weeks after that, we had 4, but they were medevaced to Thunder Bay. And then a week ago, we had 2 more that drank that body spray and were medevaced. So we all have different issues. Ours, as a remote community, we control who comes in and out. But I guess I just want to reference my colleague there when you said BCRing people out. When an individual's group is arrested, we just follow behind with a BCR to the court saying we don't want these individuals back in our communities. Some of them have been there for 3 years out. That's how we do it. And also we control, like for example, we confiscated 177,000 from one individual, a youth, who he was selling for, we don't know. But these are things we do, and I would like to really see coming together. I was recommended. And also we did put out a state of emergency, and it hasn't gotten any traction to get the help and support we need in our community to confront how these body sprays are being distributed.
Final speaker, and then we'll get to the previous amendment. So microphone 2.
Hi, I'm Shannon Hambley. I'm proxy for Kiyuan Cree Nation. We are also currently in a state of local emergency over the opioid crisis. There's a lot I'd like to say, but I just want to be very short. I had a friendly amendment as well, a very important one that was missed in the regulations of the 4 that were brought forward. It's a call upon the Government of Canada to create and implement national regulations governing the sale, distribution, and monitoring of chemical precursors, equipment, and supplies commonly used in the illicit manufacturing of toxic substances in order to disrupt production at its source and reduce the harms caused by the unregulated availability of these materials.
Miigwech, thank you. So, do you have that? So you're good with that? Okay, so I needed to read it into the record, so mover, I'll come back to you. So that is a request. I want to make sure that the team has that up on the screen. Is that one ready or previous one? So we've got two amendments. The first one's proposed by Chief Muñoz, and then this latest amendment. Just give 1 second, 1 second. So mover, I'll come back to you, but I'm going to read paragraph 3. So paragraph 3, the addition would read, highlighted in red, including public safety strategies, withdrawal management, licensed treatment facilities, and land-based healing programs led by knowledge keepers and elders. Mover, you're okay with that? Seconder? Good. The next amendment, and again, just waiting on the team to make sure we have all of that. Chief Muñoz's?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out whether or not that was Chief Muñoz's or yes, that was the one. That one was showcase. Okay, so she will.
And we are just getting those additions made. We will get them up on the screen as quickly as we can, and then we will call on a vote. So a couple of notes. Again, we are dealing with this resolution. We have brought other resolutions together. We went through the packages. We have baskets or bundles of resolutions that we will be bringing together. We will continue the assembly until 2 p.m., at which point we will begin with the closing protocols. And we are aware that several chiefs, some of you may be traveling. So one of the things you can do is turn in your badge, your lanyard with the registration booth, and you can transfer to join virtually. So you can participate in the assembly on your phones or your device and log in. But we have to make sure that's done officially through the registration team. So you can email registration@afn.ca, and that transfers you to virtually, and of course you'll still get the emails. You'll still be able to vote. For some of you that have indicated you have flights to catch, you can do so and still continue on until they get you to turn your phones off. Just want to get confirmation that we're still working on the proposed amendment. Also, it looks like, I think that's Knowledge Keeper Chuck, yes, who has the smudge available. I know we are dealing with a very sensitive matter that has impacted a lot of us in our communities. And if you wish, the smudge is available. We also have mental health supports with the Knowledge Keepers in room M7. Is it 7? I think it's room 7 on the lower level. If you do need someone to talk to, and we do have those supports available. Thank you very much. It is up on the screen. Thank you, Encore. Level 1, room 7. There is the mental wellness and safe space for those of you that require it. So, looking to the team, resolutions team, I'm not sure which paragraph it would be. Looks like we're still having a huddle with the mover, just to for confirmations on the Chief Muñoz. Was the previous amendment, that was yours? You were good with that? And that was there one more? Or was that it? That was good? Okay.
We're still capturing the final one.
I'll go to the mover. Microphone 2, please.
Thank you, Chair. We just want to change the wording to number 4 just a little bit, just so that it sounds a little bit better. Therefore, be it resolved, number 4, call upon the Government of Canada to commit to sustained multi-departmental resources to confront the root causes of fentanyl, opioid, and substance use epidemic that include colonization, gang activity, drug dealing / manufacturing, and poverty, with a focus on wraparound resources around prevention, intervention, rehabilitation programs, and access to naloxone for all First Nations. So just a little tweak.
Thank you. It's just a minor tweak, but I think it fixes, it sounded off when I read it out loud as well, so thank you for that. The team will make that change, and I will read it into the record. I hope we got it. Mover, actually, if you could stand by. Getting your exercise here today. Miigwech, thank you for that. Miigwech kazajibendamik. Kabin stay doesn't go na yamagan. Kagwezapot chikatekin kitunak kunigano. Saguchuko yazin babasik. Egodas kayaksegu tagagweduchkade. Miigwech tashkitin nawa. Kakana ugumakanak maga kayaik. Just waiting on the team. This is a bilingual session, English and French. I thank you for bearing with me. Sometimes I'll speak in my own Shinimon language. Just helps me for my own purposes as well. Brings me back to the ground and tabaten mo. Okay, we're ready. Paragraph 4. We can go back to paragraph 4. Scroll down a little bit. There it is. So it now reads, call upon the Government of Canada to commit sustained multi-departmental resources to confront the root causes of the fentanyl, opiate, and substance use epidemic that include colonization, gang activity, drug dealing, manufacturing, and poverty, with a focus on wrapping resources around prevention, intervention, rehabilitation programs, and access to naloxone for First Nations, for all First Nations. Mover, good. Seconder, good. Just want to get confirmation. Was there another one we're working on? There is.
So there's a new TBIR that has just been inputted.
So there's a new, therefore be it resolved, that is just being inputted. And so I'll get Encore to scroll down to the bottom once that is there. Okay, it's not there yet, but, oh, sorry, up. My apologies. If you can scroll up again. Oh, it's a new number 4. There it is. So this is the new number 4. It now reads, call upon the Government of Canada to create and implement national regulations governing the sale, distribution, and monitoring of chemical precursors, equipment, and supplies commonly used in the illicit manufacturing of toxic substances in order to disrupt production at its source and reduce the harms caused by the unregulated availability of these materials. So that's the proposed change. Mover? Good. Seconder? Thank you. So that is the proposed amendment. Proposed amendments. Is there anything else? Okay. So we're good. That is the resolution as amended. I will call for question. Encore, can you please open the polls, please? Polls are now open. You should be getting an email with the link to the voting site as well as your 6-digit PIN, your personal identification number. If you don't get the email, it's actually the same email as previously. You can just go back to the emails and cast your vote. The polls are open. I see results are coming in. We also have staff from the distribution table that are going around with the green lanyards. If you need some help with your voting, they are available. Again, chiefs and proxy representatives, the polls are open. Please cast your vote on your device. Which the votes are coming in. The votes continue to come in. If you have any challenges, issues, our team is available to help out. Just raise your hand and we can help out. Just a reminder, the trade show happening down the hall, I believe it closes at 1 p.m. So a little bit of time left if you'd like to go have a look. A lot of booths, a lot of information. Also some craft sales that you can look into. Really good information. And I am looking around the room. I don't see any hands raised. Looking at the numbers coming in. We'll keep going for a bit. No issues online either. I don't think there's any issues online. Just checking Zoom. No challenges on Zoom. So following this, I'll hand it over to my colleague Cedric. He'll do the first basket resolution, first bundle of resolutions, and we'll just go as far as we can. On the agenda is lunch for an hour, and then we keep going when we come back until 2 p.m. So we'll see how you feel about just proceeding on through lunch. We'll get an indication from the floor how you feel after the basket resolution. So I'll close it in about 5 seconds. So Encore, if you can close the polls, please. Thank you. So polls are now closed, and we will have the results. So the results of the resolution, I'll just get up on my screen here. I will say 100% in support, 138 votes for, 0 opposed, 2 abstentions. The resolution is carried. Miigwech. I will now hand it over to my colleague Cedric, and we'll continue. Thank you.
So thank you, Adam. My computer's bigger than yours. We will now be going into our first basket of the Assembly, which is our Economic Development, Infrastructure, and Trade basket. Our mover is Lance Heyman. I don't know if Lance is online with us or if Chief Heyman is in the room. And our seconder is Chief Brent Niganove. Chief Brent. On our left here, perfect. So we have our mover and seconder. We have 7 resolutions in this basket. I will be reading the titles and therefore be it resolved for each. So the first one is Draft Resolution 19, Support for Recognition of the Inherent Right of First Nations and Tribal Citizens to Freely Cross the Canada-United States border. If Encore can scroll down to the therefore be it resolved. Therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly 1 direct the Assembly of First Nations AFN to call on the Government of Canada to A, respect First Nations treaty and inherent rights, title, and sovereignty with respect to border mobility by removing First Nations from the Immigrations, Refugees, and Protection Act and developing a new act to respect First Nations treaty and inherent rights, title, and jurisdiction, and support First Nations and their goods crossing the United States border. And B, immediately recognize the right of U.S. federal recognized tribes and tribal citizens to cross the border. 2, direct the AFN to call on the Government of Canada to meaningfully engage directly with First Nations right holders on the development and implementation of legislative, policy, or regulatory measures on border mobility that recognizes the inherent rights of all First Nations and the spirit and intent of the Jade Treaty. 3, direct the AFN to advocate for resources from the Government of Canada and for the Jade Treaty Border Alliance and any First Nations who want to participate in the joint development of permanent solutions for Canada-U.S. border crossings for First Nations, or by First Nations. And 4, direct the AFN to support the Jade Treaty Border Alliance in their efforts to develop implementation mechanisms consistent with First Nations inherent in treaty rights for recognized rights of entry that support First Nations self-determination. And again, these edits on therefore be it resolved 2 were by the mover and seconder. We then have draft resolution 20, if we can have those put up on the board. The title of the resolution is Treaty and Inherent Rights to Trade. Again, encore, if we can have draft resolution 20, and if we can scroll down to the therefore be it resolved. I will begin reading them just for time. Therefore be it resolved that the First Nations in Assembly 1 direct the Assembly of First Nations to support the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations in securing funding from the Treaty Rights Protection Fund to obtain a legal opinion exploring the recognition of an Aboriginal and treaty right to cross-border trade. 2, direct the AFN to urge the federal government to include First Nations in all discussions and negotiations related to tariffs and trade policies, particularly where such policies impact the movement of goods, resources, and commerce tied to treaty and traditional territories. And 3, call upon the Government of Canada to formally recognize First Nations inherent in treaty rights to conduct trade and commerce both nationally and internationally, and to enshrine this recognition in Canadian trade policy and legislation. We then have draft resolution 21, which will also have certain edits that were pre-approved by the mover and seconder. Draft resolution 21 is advancing First Nation trade in economies through a First Nations trade strategy. For encore, that is draft resolution 21, and once again, if we can scroll down to therefore be it resolved. Therefore be resolved that the First Nations in Assembly 1 direct the Assembly of First Nations to develop and implement a First Nations trade strategy pending the acquisition of appropriate funding and resources under the guidance and advice of the AFN's Chiefs Committee on Economic Development and AFN councils that includes A, a long-term strategy to identify First Nations challenges, priorities, and opportunities in internal and international trade. This includes exploring alternative policy tools and advocacy activities to support First Nations trade and to alleviate challenges such as Indigenous foreign trade zones, procurement policies, intellectual property, and Indigenous traditional knowledge policies. B, the development of a First Nations trade entity, such as the Centre of Excellence, Trade Council, and/or Trade Task Force. And C, the development of an implementation plan with clear timelines and deliverables, including reporting back to the First Nations in Assembly with a consultative draft at a future Assembly. What was added and pre-approved by our mover and seconder is D, work in partnership with the First Nations of Quebec and Labrador Economic Development Commission to consider the integration of the First Nations Identification Initiative, a Canadian official mark already recognized and used by major partners such as Hydro-Quebec into the First Nations trade strategy as the authenticity seal for First Nations business and entrepreneurs, a mark created by and for First Nations. 2, in the interim, and as immediate priorities, A, call on the Government of Canada to ensure that First Nations inherent in treaty rights are upheld in any CUSMA renegotiation or any new North American Economic Agreement through the inclusion of First Nations negotiators on any potential renegotiation or negotiation. B, call on the Government of Canada to ensure any new or modified trade and investment agreement aligns with First Nations inherent in treaty rights, for example, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Canadian-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, and the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. This includes calling on Canada to ensure international trade agreements are consistent. I imagine there's the word "with" missing there. AFN Resolution 99-2023, Opposition to Investor-State Dispute Settlement Mechanisms, which directed the AFN to urge the Government of Canada to remove investor-state dispute settlement mechanisms from existing trade and investment agreements and ensure that future trade and investment agreements do not include ISDS provisions. C, call upon Canada to include First Nations leaders as full participants at any First Minister's table and/or other intergovernmental meetings on trade matters. D, call upon Canada to ensure First Nations inherent in treaty rights are upheld in Canada's trade diversification and remission strategies, including policy, regulatory, and legislative amendments aimed at reducing internal trade barriers. E, call upon Canada to implement programs and policies to support exports from First Nations businesses, such as trade missions, increase investment in First Nations businesses, and simplifying access to loans and grants for First Nations businesses. Direct the AFN to engage and collaborate with global Indigenous peoples to expand Indigenous to Indigenous relations and find opportunities for Indigenous partnerships amidst the ongoing geopolitical uncertainty, including the National Congress and American Indians, the J Treater Border Alliance, Te Tuamata Nga Toki Wakarororanga, the Ambassador for First Nations People, Australia, and the Indigenous partners of the Indigenous Peoples Economic and Trade Cooperative Agreement. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced one of those. G, direct the AFN to advocate for and increase awareness of Indigenous trade at international forums such as the World Trade Organization, Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development, Organization of American States, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and expert mechanisms on the rights of Indigenous peoples. We then have Draft Resolution 22, Advancing Nation-to-Nation Trade. If we can have that put on the screen again, Draft Resolution 22, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations and Assembly 1, direct the Assembly of First Nations to develop and implement a nation-to-nation export trail to support trade between and amongst First Nations from coast to coast to coast. 2, call on the Government of Canada to ensure that the implementation of the Free Trade and Labour Mobility in Canada Act upholds First Nations' inherent rights to trade. And 3, direct the AFN to work with the Government of Canada to identify and secure resources to advance this work. We then have Draft Resolution 23, Transition of the First Nations Market Housing Fund to First Nations control. We have, therefore be it resolved, direct the Assembly of First Nations, AFN, to urge the federal government to honor its intent to transfer control of the First Nations Housing Market Fund to First Nations control, as was contemplated in the Indenture of Trust, which established the FNHMF. Therefore be it resolved 2, support the current Board of Trustees in their effort to transfer control of the FNMHF to First Nations control through their memorandum to cabinet submission, incorporating feedback from engagement sessions with First Nation citizens, which will be submitted in 2025. The next resolution is Draft Resolution 24, ensure adequate and equitable levels of social housing funding. If we can have it put up on the screen, therefore be it resolved that the First Nations and Assembly, 1, call on Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, since it is considering the year 26-27 for the implementation of a new funding formula for First Nations social housing, not to make any unilateral decisions that will result in a reduction in the level of funding in one or more regions. 2, call on CMHC to ensure any changes to First Nations housing programming, including the Section 95 program and funding formulas for such programming, are co-developed with the Assembly of First Nations to ensure adequate, equitable, long-term funding that leaves no region behind. And 3, requests that the Chiefs Committee on Housing and Infrastructure and the AFN Housing and Infrastructure Secretariat to monitor this matter in detail and report back to the First Nations and Assembly before the Special Chiefs Assembly in December 2025. And the final resolution in our package is Draft Resolution 25, First Nations Solid Waste Management. Thank you, Encore. Therefore, be it resolved that the First Nations and Assembly, 1, call upon the Government of Canada and the Minister of Indigenous Services Canada to A, recognize solid waste management as an essential service in First Nations communities, B, immediately commit to adequate long-term investments supporting solid waste management programming, and C, ensure First Nations and tribal councils have access to core funding supporting solid waste initiatives. So I will now move to our mover and seconder if you wish to have opening remarks. If we can have microphone number 1 with our mover, Lance Heyman. Chief.
So good afternoon. I want to acknowledge and thank the nations from Treaty 1 for welcoming us on their territory so we can conduct our business. It's been a long 2.5 days waiting to get this opportunity to speak to the resolutions. While I only am the mover on 2 of the 6, I was asked, as part of the way and means to expedite this process, to advance, all 6 resolutions. So while I'm not totally familiar with 19, 20, 21, and 22, I am intimately familiar with resolutions 23 and 24, which I am the mover and which are very important for us, across this country. So I'm hoping that, as friendly amendments or other requests for changes to the resolutions come forward, that the chiefs and who are the movers and seconders may be able to speak directly, to those resolutions. I'm very happy again to be here and just, want to, in the name of advancing and getting this done quickly, to move these resolutions as requested. So, thanks.
Thank you, Chief Heyman. We'll now look towards our seconder. Microphone number 1 again, please.
First Nation Chief. I support all of the resolutions ahead of mine. Mine's the last and the shortest, but I do support those other resolutions. Obviously, trade is our inherent right, and the House and Fund, we've been asking for control of that for a time now, for stronger financial and lending guarantees that allow our communities to grow. For the solid waste, it is a critical piece. In the rest of Canada, it's recognized as essential service, but not for First Nation. This creates dangerous inequalities in basic community infrastructure. These services should not be an afterthought. They should be fundamental for health, safety, and the environment. The program may end in 2008. That would be a mistake. This program must continue and recognize as essential. Otherwise, our communities will continue to be left behind at the services that every Canadian outside of First Nations take for granted. Looking for support for affirming our inherent right to economic rights, building financial tools we need, and ensuring essential services like waste management are properly recognized and funded. These are not luxuries, they are necessities, and they are a foundation for the health and self-determinating First Nation communities. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief. Again, just as a reminder, if ever there are friendly amendments on the floor, please specify for which resolution you are looking for so that our Encore team can have it set up on the board. We do again have 7 resolutions in this package. We'll now go to discussion, and I know Proxy Casimir, microphone 2, please.
I'm going to go first. I moved it, okay? Just a reminder, this resolution deals with us crossing the border. We have to remember, God, our Creator, gave us all of Turtle Island, and we have families, we have partnerships, and we traded throughout Turtle Island. with no restrictions. And earlier on, when the agreement was made, Canada had agreed on the Jay Treaty to allow us to continue what we have been doing. And now, they don't recognize Jay Treaty, but the United States recognizes Jay Treaty, where we have traded and we crossed the border without any difficulties before the international border was there. So this resolution speaks to that, so that we can continue that. But right now, Canada has us under the Immigration, Repatriation, and Protection Act. Well, how many of us are immigrants? How many of us are refugees in our own country? So we expect 100% support, unless you think you're an immigrant or a refugee. So we just wanted to explain that. So it's straightforward. Canada has to recognize our inherent and treaty rights here. It's all implicated in this. Oh yeah, and we did put an amendment in which we agreed to, is that as recognized the inherent right of all First Nations and as recognized by the spirit intent of the Jay Treaty, because that was the original treaty that Canada entered into to recognize our inherent and treaty rights. So that's why we put it in there.
Thank you, Prox Casimir. We can continue going on with the minute and a half left, or you can have your turn once we come back. Which would you prefer?
I just wanted to say quickly, Roseanne Casimir to Councillor Schwabmunk, in honor of the ancestral lands in which we're here doing business, but also prayers are also out for Chief Larry and his community. And just wanted to share that I do, and in favor of the omnibus resolution for this year basket. But I just wanted to share that I just also wanted to mention that last year, the Schwabmunk and the Sealks, we did a unity ride across the border, and that was in collaboration with the Jay Treaty Border Alliance, in which I do see our friend here over at microphone 2, and also along with the CBSA, the National Defense, and many of our consultants throughout our respective nations. And it was not about protest, it was about unity, but upholding our sovereign rights and being able to cross that border. Just like, my friend here, Regina Regina, sorry. Now she's my friend, Regina.
Yes.
But, I just wanted to say that I support that. Cook's job.
Thank you.
Okay, just a final thing. The Jay Border Treaty Alliance has been working on their own voluntarily, and now they need some funds to continue the work. So we hope that the Assembly, the Chiefs, will approve that, and so that AFN can pursue those funds for them. And also, I thank Treaty 1, and they're welcome to us for being here to conduct our business. Thank you.
Thank you. So, just noticing that we do have a few people. A little heads up, we will be closing the speakers list soon, so if ever you do, please approach the mic. I see that we have Chief Cheryl Casimir online. If we can have her set up on screen and unmuted, please. Again, Chief Cheryl Casimir, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It does take a couple of minutes for me to get unmuted, just so that you're aware. I try to hit the button and it doesn't work. It only works until you say, have so-and-so unmuted, please, just so that you know. I'm speaking in favor of the omnibus. I think that given the political landscape that we currently are facing with the threats to this country's sovereignty, it's important for us to make sure that we can protect our own interests and our own sovereignty as First Nations peoples in this country. And we've seen direction that the current government has taken in terms of fast-tracking certain bills, and that's not only happening federally, but it's also taken place provincially. In British Columbia, we've been dealing with the fast-tracking of major project bills happening related to mining and other resource extraction projects that the government deems to be a priority or in the best interests of the collective. So I think that these resolutions are timely and that it allows us an opportunity to put into place strategies in terms of how we go forward protecting our interests, our rights, as well as how do we capitalize on some of these initiatives that are taking place within our respective territories where we're at tables as decision makers and not as an afterthought. I think it's long gone for those days of consulting with us. It's a matter of obtaining our free, prior, and informed consent, and we need to make sure that the government continues to hear that message loud and clear. However, if we are going to be talking about trade agreements and positioning ourselves against the federal and provincial governments on these matters related to trade, whether it's in this country or whether it's with the United States or other countries in the world, we need to make sure that we are coordinated amongst ourselves. And what I mean by that is that there needs to be some respect given to those age-old protocols, unwritten protocols that we have amongst ourselves as nations. And that we need to be cognizant that in order to stand united against governments and the plans that they have related to trade and how that may impact us, we need to respect each other. And I'm saying this because my nation and my community have been dealing with nations that are coming into the territory from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario and harvesting medicines and other non-timber products, and totally bypassing protocols. Our APNUSTI, our land guardians, are the ones who were finding people out in the backwoods, in my backyard, harvesting those medicines and not having taken the opportunity to come and meet with me as the chief of my community or my elders to talk about how we'll trade and how we'll respect each other's protocols. So that is causing us huge concern. And so before we can even talk about trade at any other level, we need to make sure that we solidify the respect and the relationship amongst us as nations and honor those protocols that have been in place since time immemorial. So I would strongly recommend that we have an opportunity, perhaps at the December AFN, to have a panel to discuss this further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chief. So again, seeing that we have no new speakers at the microphone, I will be closing the list. I will go to microphone 1, please.
First of all, Chief Ross Montour, Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, proxy for Grand Chief Cody Daibo and Mohawks of Kahnawake. I'd first also like to express my gratitude to the people of Treaty 1 for allowing us to have this gathering here and to have the opportunity to speak to the Chiefs of Assembly with respect to the border crossing resolution number 19. Kahnawake is one of the founding members of the J Treaty Border Alliance, and that work goes back quite a ways. The J Treaty, the first battle on J Treaty in the defense of our right to cross the border goes back to 1925 in the person of Paul K. Daibo, and I think that's important to know. That's background information about the J Treaty Border Alliance and how we come to be significantly and passionately involved in the defense of those rights. The J Treaty Border Alliance was formed in 2017 by tribal governments and First Nations communities to collaborate on the efforts to protect our rights preserved in the J Treaty. Jay Treaty Border Alliance is a rights holder, and I think it's important to point out that in this resolution, we are not, we actually would want to make clear to the Assembly of First Nations that our expectations is for them to be in support of the rights holders, and for the rights holders to carry on the work. What we do need is support in terms of the government funding the continuation of that work. Not to supplant it, not to take it over. We're not, very specifically, not asking the Assembly of First Nations to take over that work. We will continue to do that, and we have done so with nations on both sides of the border impacted by the 48th parallel. So we have the Kootenay from the northwest coast. We have Seneca, who are on the other side of the Canadian border in New York State. So that work will continue, but we would like for the Chiefs in Assembly to direct the AFN to advocate for resources from the Government of Canada for the Jay Treaty Border Alliance and any First Nations who want to participate in joint development. But when I say joint development, we're talking about among rights holders.
So if I could just ask Encore to have Resolution 19, or Draft Resolution 19 pulled up. We are talking about therefore be it resolved 3. If we can have those posted to the screen, please. Continue, Chief.
Yeah, so it's important to say that what we're looking for is that AFN be directed to support the Jay Treaty Border Alliance and the continuation of their efforts to develop implementation mechanisms consistent with First Nations inherent right and treaty rights for the recognized rights of entry that support First Nations self-determination. I want to thank Regina Crowchild for moving this forward, and also I have to remember names now. I think it's important to thank people, Roseanne Casimir, for seconding the motion for the resolution. It's a very important resolution, but I think as we move forward, it's come up in discussion over the last couple of days, is that the AFN is an advocacy body. But it's the rights holders who need to be able to move things forward. It's the chiefs in assembly. And so that's what we're saying. We're saying is that it's our responsibility, and we will carry on the work. I say the co-chair, or the co-chair is sitting up there in your panel, in the person of Abram Benedict. So we met in I believe it was 2020 with, at the time it was Marco Mendocino, Patty Hadju, and Mark Miller in Ottawa, actually at the AFN offices there. And it was there that our presentations to them that they agreed to setting up of high-level talks on the development of that right. So I want to thank you for listening, and I ask for the support of the chiefs in Assembly for moving this forward.
Perfect. And again, Chief Montour, I just want to make sure you spoke about therefore be resolved 3 and 4, but there are no proposed amendments. You just wanted.
No, I just wanted to make the emphasis, okay, that it's clear that we're not talking about negotiation. We're talking about advocate for the funds, get those funds to the rights holders. And the Jay Treaty is not an organization per se. It is a body of people advancing the border crossing rights on our brothers and sisters on both sides of the border. So,
Well, and our final speaker, I would open microphone 1, please.
Hello, I will speak in French. Chef Lucien Wabananik was not able to be here today. He asked me to speak to the Assembly in order to thank the mover and seconder for draft resolution 21. He proposed a modification. The modification it could have been 1D, is that it? Yes. Yes, 1D. He added Amendment 1D that we're not speaking only about commerce, trade, but authenticity, the identification of First Nations. We need to put a seal of authenticity on First Nations businesses and organizations created by and for First Nations. It is already recognized by big partners like Hydro-Quebec, the City of Montreal. And this is concrete, this is official, and it's already in action. So it is time to consider the idea or this seal as a commercial strategy for First Nations. The bear logo was created by Frank Post, an Anishinaabe artist from the First Nation of Long Point in Quebec. And we sincerely thank Chief Cheerlean from BC and Chief Rake from Newfoundland, Labrador for presenting this important resolution and for their openness to reinforcing it with such tools. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Kisabish. Encore. I'll repeat it in English afterwards, but we will move to vote promptly. When we have a basket like it is the case right now, we vote on all resolutions at once. So you say you're for or against for all resolutions. And so all of the resolutions in this basket.
As good as they were and couldn't read the translation in English, just a quick reminder that when we do vote on baskets, we are voting on the entirety of the resolutions in it. So you will be voting either for, against, or abstain. Draft Resolution 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So I would ask our technicians to please open the polls. For Basket 1, Economic Development, Infrastructure, and Trade. I believe the voting has been open. You should be receiving your links. You can update your pages that were already open. And it seemed to go smooth this morning, but we do also have our staff with the bright green lanyards around. I see that there's already quite a few that have come in. We'll give it maybe another minute just to make sure that the system is loading and all that. And again, for those who are virtual, the process is the same. You must vote through the online platform using the unique code that is sent specifically to you and the email that you registered with. And maybe another 30 seconds, let's call it. And if anyone's having any issues, just raise your hand. Our team is around. I'm not seeing any for now. So final 10 seconds. Again, the number hasn't moved too much. Get your votes in. And I would ask our technical team to please close the polls. So again, this is on basket number 1, Economic Development, Infrastructure and Trade, with draft resolution 19 as amended, 20, 21 as amended, 22, 23, 24, and 25. If I can have the results be posted onto the screen, we have 118 for, 1 opposed, and 7 abstentions. The resolution basket is carried. And now, Chiefs, we're going to make this a little unofficial as a request, but we see it's 12:40. What we can suggest is to keep going on, or we can at least give ourselves a short 20-minute break, come back at 1, and keep going with the process at that point. Get you up, get your limbs moving a little bit. I'm seeing thumbs up for the getting up for 20 minutes, so we'll be back at 1 p.m. to continue on with our day.
Baby.